Okay. Thank you for downloading. Before we start, content warning. This game features text descriptions and non-explicit visual descriptions of 1. Blood, gore. 2. Torture. 3. Foreign cannibalism. 4. Sex. Hi, bird. Welcome to the fish pond. Thank you for following. And 5. Hand-holding. By continuing, you agree to do so at your own risk. I assume that everybody who's actually likely to come to this is on board with that. Because I know my friends, especially the ones that are still awake at midnight my time. Hi, thank you for coming. Let's go. You can see everything okay, Kai? It's showing up on stuff?
Yep, absolutely fine. Let's go. Let's get it.
I see we have a Vori round bird in chat. Anyway, after years of waking up at the same time every day, I've grown far too accustomed to it. I'm awake even before my alarm beetle goes off. The air outside must still be cold from the rain last night. The room feels a little chilly, and there's the strong compulsion to stay curled up in my blanket. My bed is enticingly warm, after all. So I decide to remain still until it's absolutely necessary for me to rise. Keeping my eyes closed, I consider what to wear today. The weather today is supposed to be cloudy. Wearing an extra cloak might not be a bad idea. Just one of the lighter ones. Hi, Dad. Hi, sweet. Welcome to the fish pond. Thank you for coming. Oh, that's the alarm beetle. I didn't get sound effects last time because I was watching on your stream. There's an actual sound effect for it. It's a good sound effect. The alarm beetle starts chirping, and I lay a hand on it even before its first trill is over, gently silencing it. I crack my eyes open to squint at the light gently filtering into my room. Should we get it, or should we have another minute in bed? What do you reckon? Did we?
Well,
were we good and got up last time? I can't remember.
I think we were.
Okay, should we have one more minute this time? I'll keep my eyes closed for just one more minute. I exhale slowly and count to 60. The comfortable haze of sleep threatens to creep back over me, but I ward it off with some effort. 58. 59. 60. What do you reckon? One more minute?
Oh, you play it dangerous.
It's a brinkmanship, this. Is it edging? Does this count as edging?
I don't think so.
I'll stay here for one more count of 60. It's not my usual style to be so lethargic in the mornings, but once in a while it's forgivable. 58. 59. 60. Okay, I think we wake up now. 2 is enough. Okay, I really need to get up now. Alright, let's get going. I crawl out of bed and begin my usual morning routine. It's become such a deeply ingrained habit that I hardly need to think about what I'm doing. I splash my face with water first and wipe off any pus that's accumulated overnight. Toweling my face off, I return to open the windows and air out the place. The atmosphere outside is crisp from last night's rain, the ground's still a little moist, and there's a pleasant miasma that stings at the nose. Poking my head out the window, I take a few deep breaths to chase off the last tendrils of sleep before withdrawing back inside and making my bed. I find my way to my table and retrieve my usual breakfast. A block of salt and a cup of water. Some people go without eating in the morning, or only drink water, but I find it hard to last the morning without some salt. The crystals crunch between my teeth as I look for a cloak of appropriate thickness. The cloak I'm looking for turns out to be abandoned in a corner, and I swallow my mouthful of salt as I pull it on. The salt burns down the full length of my throat, and I wash it down with water. That done, I smooth my hands down the front of my cloak to brush off any stray salt crystals, and to make sure there aren't any unsightly wrinkles. I want to look presentable. Even if I'm just a delivery agent, I still want to look good for my clients. My IT... Hydrate, folks. My entire routine doesn't take more than 15 minutes. I've streamlined it well over the years. I glance outside as I close my window. The streets outside are still mostly quiet, with only a few people bustling about. The owner of the corner store is quietly sweeping the streets, the rhythmic scratch of brush bristles against the damp dirt echoing down the block. A few crows linger on a nearby roof, muttering to themselves. They seem a bit more excited than usual. My room falls quiet when I close the window. As I leave, I lock the door and jostle it 1, 2, 3 times to make sure it's secure. Then I head down the street. The crows bellow at me when I walk past them, and I glance up to give them a smile. They remember people's faces, so it's best to stay on their good side if possible. Past them, the sky is a deeper green than it usually is. I squint and shield my eyes as I look up at the suns. That's right, I'd forgotten. The eclipse is in 2 days. The primary sun looms largest overhead, but its smaller brothers don't lag far behind, the 3 forming a lopsided triangle. The moon lingers lower down, closer to the horizon, like a pale paper cutout laid against the sky. It's normal for them to be scattered like this, but in 2 days, for just a few moments, they'll all align. The 3 suns all overlapping at one point in the sky, blocked from our view by one of our 2 moons. An absolute solar eclipse.
Excited about the eclipse coming up?
I give a slight jump when a voice chirps from right behind me. I whirl around so quickly, I almost end up entangled in my own cloak.
Oh, whoa! Didn't mean to scare you there. Sorry about that.
No, it's alright. I was just thinking about things. One of my neighbours, Agari, from just down the block. She looks more jittery than usual, a string of saliva dribbling down from her mandibles as she also casts her gaze up towards the sky.
Oh, it's so exciting, isn't it? Just 2 more days, and it'll be the eclipse. Are you thinking of doing anything special on that day, sweetie?
I smile and shake my head. Nothing in particular. I'm just looking forward to seeing it.
Oh, that's also fine. But you should really think hard, just in case there is something special you want to do on that day.
Well, an absolute solar eclipse only occurs once every century or so. A rare event. I squint up at the sky. Perhaps because of that, people view it as an auspicious phenomenon. It's said that if you make an important life decision or attempt something new on the day of an absolute solar eclipse, the results are more likely to be favourable. I've never believed in such superstitions, but I know most of the city is looking forward to the eclipse. A lot of people propose to loved ones, explore new areas, or change their jobs on eclipse day. As a result, I've heard it's considered something of a headache for the community organisers who need to deal with the chaos. Still, the excitement building in the air is almost palpable. Regardless of my own beliefs, I don't see any reason to squelch anyone else's excitement. I look back to my neighbour. Do you have any plans for Eclipse Day, Agari?
Oh, I do.
She gives an excited chirp, clasping her hands together.
I'm going to visit my dear friend across town. We had a rather bad fight years ago and haven't spoken since. But we agreed to meet on Eclipse Day to talk things out, and I'm sure we'll be able to rekindle our friendship.
Her genuine excitement is heartwarming. I can't help smiling as I give a nod. That sounds wonderful. I hope it goes well.
Thank you, dear. Oh, but I shouldn't keep you for too long. You're on your way to work, aren't you?
I nod again. It's alright. I always head out early. And it was nice hearing about your plans.
Well, good luck on your work, and do think about something to do for Eclipse Day. It would be such a shame to let the opportunity pass by you.
I give her a small wave as I turn to leave, and she cheerily returns the gesture. But once I turn the corner, I speed up into a light gallop. Despite what I told her, I hurry a little. I like getting places a little earlier than necessary. Oh, here we go. Time for everybody to thirst. Good morning, boss. The air in the salt processing plant stings at my nose, burning at the lungs a little with each breath. and I try not to inhale too deeply. Full-time workers here usually wear masks unless they happen to have well-developed nasal filters. Since I'm usually in and out of here quickly, I don't bother with masks.
Where's your mask?
My boss is pretty strict, though. It's alright, boss. I'll be out of here pretty quick.
No. Wear your mask. You'll need to wait a few moments.
He thrusts a mask into my hands before I can stop him, then turns away to a nearby table piled high with packages. I give a slightly exasperated sigh. How many times have we had this exact same exchange before? Although it's a good indicator of how much the boss cares for his workers, I guess. I'll put on the mask. Might as well just put on the mask. It's a little uncomfortable, especially where the filter brushes against the raw sections of my face, but it does immediately make breathing easier. As I adjust the mask's strings, I take a cursory glance around the factory. It's a familiar sight, but its internal workings are always fascinating to watch. A chute at the far end of the room belches out spurts of salt crystals, spilling them into a huge vat. The steady hum of grinding and crunching sometimes seeps through the chute, like the sounds of many small bones being chewed up. On the other side of that chute is the machine that processes the raw salt, breaking up any larger rocks into these smaller crystals. The ground up salt needs to be processed further, though. The grinding process doesn't get rid of any insects, rocks, or hair clumps that might be present in the raw salt rocks. Workers carry huge buckets of this unprocessed salt to the smaller vats that dot the cavernous room. These vats are constantly stirred with long poles, pressing the salt crystals through filters that will catch any unwanted material. The filters quickly clog up with hair and insect wings and need to be swapped out frequently. One vat has a worker carefully adding an enormous bucket of flavouring to it. The scent of honey comes wafting through the air, and I inhale deeply. The sweet slick of honey contrasts beautifully with the familiar crisp sting of salt. Honey salt must be delicious. Maybe I'll get to splurge on it someday. But in order to do that, I need to work. What's my quota look like today? My voice comes out a little muffled past the mask.
Little more than usual.
I step to the table to help the boss load packages into a cloth bundle. Each packet is a block of salt wrapped tight in a piece of fabric. The fabric protects the salt from any moisture while it's in transit, and also catches any pieces that might crumble off. Most of the bundles are wrapped in cheap tan fabric. Those are the packets of normal salt. But there are a few packages wrapped in red or yellow cloth, and even fewer wrapped in white cloth. The white ones are mercury, right? The boss grunts in the affirmative. Mercury salt is such a rare treat, thank you, that I don't deliver it often. That looks like more honey and punishment salt than usual too.
People getting excited about the eclipse, treating themselves.
Right, of course. The boss counts the packages one last time before tying the bundle shut and handing it over to me. There's the rustle of fabric and the crackle of loose salt crystals bumping into each other with each movement, the package weighing heavily in my hands. I tie the fabric tight over one shoulder so the bundle won't come loose or jostle around too much while I'm running.
And here's the route.
He hands me a scrap of paper with just a few notes jotted on it. I've long since memorised my route, and the paper only notes any exceptions. Who doesn't need salt today, who's getting special salt instead of the usual, who's getting more packages than normal today. Usually I don't even need this cheat sheet, but there are a lot of exceptions today. It really does seem like everyone's changing things up in preparation for the eclipse. All the more reason to avoid making mistakes. I'd hate to deliver people the wrong salt and put a damper on the mood. Got it. Pocketing the note, I give the bundle one last tug with my hand to make sure it's in place before turning towards the door. Right before I push the door open, I remember to take my mask and hand it back to the boss. He gives a snort as he takes it back, waving a hand to shoo me out and on my way. As the heavy door lumbers shut, I hear him call out, gruffly,
Take care.
Just a tiny sliver of the plant's interior is visible past the closing door, and I give him a wave of the hand before turning back towards the street. Alright, time to begin my route. I've been delivering salt for several years now. Though I was uncertain when an acquaintance first suggested the job to me, I've really warmed up to it since then. The workload is consistent and predictable. My boss is nice, if a little gruff, and the neighbourhoods I deliver to are full of friendly people. Do you want to take this one?
Yep.
Hey, starting on your route for today?
Yep. Have a good morning. Oh. Have a good morning.
You too.
My hindclaws dig a little into the ground, kicking up small clumps of dirt with each step. I quickly fall into a comfortable galloping gait as I take a hard left outside the salt processing plant and start heading down the street. Huge slabs of buildings loom overhead on both sides. This block doesn't have many residents, as it's mostly factories. I pass by those quickly. No deliveries to make just yet. But I do have one delivery to make at the corner up ahead. The building at the very end of the block is smaller, its outer walls off-white instead of a murky beige. It's not very tall either, but it does have an awesome structure sprouting from its top. A giant tower clawing up towards the sky, made of bone and coated with smooth flesh. An enormous pair of antennae protrude from the tip of the tower, their chitinous shells gleaming faintly in the sunlight. They whip back and forth at random intervals, as if raking through the air. The numerous eyeballs at the antennae's base also blink frequently, their irises swiveling, about to survey their surroundings. One of them whirls around to look me over when I approach, and I give it a small wave. The front entrance to the building has a small sign carved into it. The sign reads, Community Overlook Centre. I open the door and enter. The office's interior is much cosier, the air clean and warm. There are a few desks littered with papers, workers busily reading over their contents and filling out other forms. This place always looks busy when I come by. Never hectic, though. Despite the steady bustle of productivity, things always seem in control. Not that I know these workers very well. I do wave to a vaguely familiar face, but head straight for the far corner where the tower control pod sits. The pod's nerves crawl up the walls like a giant spider web, thick cables of flesh burrowing into the smooth rock surface. The pod itself is a giant oblong shape, coated in flesh and pulsing gently. The eyeballs embedded in its surface flicker about more languidly, a few of them fixing on me as I approach, though they close wetly after a few minutes of staring. They probably don't want to get squished when the pod opens. There's the loud squelch of fluid-sick flesh when the pod splits open at the centre, its two halves neatly sliding apart like a beetle's carapace. A wall of hot, damp air bursts outward as the pod opens. The interior of the pod is oozing with fluid, drips of it spilling out to dot the floor. A thick coating of it obscures the shape of the person sitting inside until he sits up and stretches his arms. Fluid comes sloughing off in sheets, spilling back into the pod's interior as he rises to his feet. There's two wet plops of suction as he detaches the pod's nerve cables attached to his temples. Hi, Yeastall. Yeastall towers over me when he straightens up to his full height, the bones of his feet clicking gracefully on the floor when he steps out of the pod.
Good morning, Bill.
Oh god. Okay. It's gonna be like that, is it? Composure. I can hold it. For now. He always talks gently, his voice low. It's a little hard making out what he's saying if the office is ever really busy, but it does make him sound very reassuring, especially when he smiles a little.
Diligent as ever, I see.
Yeastall leads the way into a table nearby. It's far enough from the pod that there isn't any danger of fluid splashback, which is good. Salt doesn't hold up well to anything wet, and I have a lot of salt to drop off here. My bundle's heavy from the day's worth of salt, and I'm looking forward to lightening it significantly. I start undoing the fabric knot to put the bundle down on the table. How are things looking today? He gives a small sigh at that, just a puff of air that escapes past chitinous lips.
I haven't spotted any real troublemakers, but there's certainly a buzz in the air. There does seem to be a little crowd congregating just north of here, so I might have to send someone to check it out later. Hopefully it's just a friendly gathering, so I can leave it be. I'd hate to have to get anyone in trouble just before the eclipse.
Suggest action, nod sympathetically, agree with leniency.
Hmm.
I can't remember what we did last time.
I think we agreed with leniency.
Yeah, should we suggest action this time?
Candy?
I can't help thinking it might be easier for Yeastel if action is taken. Wouldn't it be a little easier on you to break them up, just in case? Yeastel thinks the matter over for a moment before shaking his head.
I'll leave it, just in case. I don't want to make cruel assumptions. People might feel unwelcome or hurt if I do something like that.
Even if I don't quite agree, I can at least understand where Yeastel's coming from. He's always mindful of how the community feels, which is admirable. Yeastel's job seems busy at the best of times, and I can imagine it only grows more difficult during times of excitement, like around the eclipse. There aren't very many people who can handle the pressure of being the town's overlook, especially since the overlook pod is apparently a strain to operate. But Yeastel's been loved by everyone since he took the job. Highly attentive and quick to respond, he's been key in maintaining the town's peace. Because he's able to spot troublemakers so quickly and send officials to stop them before too much damage is done, it's done a lot to discourage crime. That, on top of being an all-round nice guy. The fabric finally comes undone, and I settle it on the table before digging through my pocket for the note. Alright, it says here that you need 24 packets of salt today, correct?
Correct.
24 then. Yeastel doesn't eat the 24 packets of salt for himself, of course. As the community overlook, he's also in charge of keeping an eye out for people who are ill or injured or have fallen on hard times. Anyone who might have difficulty procuring their own salt. These 24 packets will be distributed to such people. That's a little more than usual, right? Is the eclipse causing any trouble? I lay out the salt packets in stacks of 4.
In a sense.
Yeastel gives a slightly sheepish laugh.
It's not trouble, but I wanted to ensure that people aren't struggling for salt during a time as joyous as the eclipse. I'll be giving out a little extra to people who are having a hard time.
He's such a good boy. I love him. My heart warms with admiration. That's really nice of you. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. 6 stacks of 4. 24 packets of salt laid neatly on the table, and I make sure Yeastel's given it an approving nod before tying my bundle back over my shoulder.
Speaking of the eclipse, do you have any plans?
Everyone's so excited about the eclipse. I shake my head. Not really. I might go out to watch it, I guess. Yeastel laughs gently. He has a raspy laugh in contrast to his lilting voice.
You sound awfully unimpressed by the eclipse.
I guess I'm just pretty satisfied with where I am right now. I know the eclipse is supposed to be good luck if you're making any big decisions, but I don't have any decisions to make. I shift the bundle on my shoulder, and it comes out like a shrug. Maybe if I try taking a different route on my delivery that day, I'll find a shortcut.
That would be nice. It would make your life a little easier, I suppose.
Do you have any plans? There's a pause. Yeastel looks thoughtful, a finger tapping at his chin before his lips curve in a smile.
I might. I'm still deciding. But you know... Oh.
Yeastel reaches out to touch my shoulder. Despite the hard bones of his fingers, the gesture is soft and comforting, squeezing just briefly before giving a tender pat and then pulling away.
The eclipse really is a special time. Not just because of the eclipse itself, but because everyone is so excited and happy. I don't think it would be a bad idea to take advantage of that unique energy in the air.
I give a small smile. Alright. I'll give it some thought. Yeastel sees me off. Is it alright for you to leave your pod for so long?
It's alright for a few minutes. Taking short breaks helps keep my mind clear.
Don't work yourself too hard. Even if everyone's depending on you, you shouldn't run yourself ragged.
Thanks. You too.
I grin. Don't worry, you helped me a lot by taking so much salt off my hands. My route's always easier after I've visited you. Yeastall rasps out a laugh.
Well, I'm glad I could be of help to you, though I should be the one thanking you for your work all the time.
Alright, I'll see you later, Yeastall.
Take care, Bill.
That voice is going right through the space between like two of my upper vertebrae, and it's right, I can feel it. I hope you're all listening on good headphones. Yeastall waves as I start off at a light jog. I wave back. The overlook tower is docile without him in the cockpit, the towering antennae and mound of flesh just barely quivering. It's strange to see it so calm, which says a lot about how much I've grown used to Yeastall's constant presence keeping an eye on the city. He's a good guy. I hope he gets a day off sometime. He could probably use it. It only takes me a few paces to hit my stride, my posture lowering as I transition into my usual gallop. With that big delivery out of the way, the rest of the route is smaller deliveries. No problem. Here you go.
Thanks! Quick as ever, aren't you?
Just trying to be on time. Have a nice day.
You too, Bill.
Most deliveries go quickly, just 1 or 2 salt packets to drop off along with a brief greeting. For people who aren't at home, I have to drop their salt into the usual delivery box out in front of their door. It's nicer doing personal deliveries since I like saying a brief hello to my clients, but it can't be helped. Everyone has things to do.
Thanks, Bill.
Honey salt, huh? Planning on doing something special for the eclipse?
Yep, thinking of throwing a bit of a party.
I love party animal melting tentacle dude. So good. Glad I could get you your salt safely then.
I appreciate it. You be careful on your route now, you hear?
Will do. Everyone seems happy. It's nice. It's a nice day. My next delivery is a few blocks away, but I can cut through the park. The ground's a little wetter here, the dirt solid beneath my feet instead of kicking up into little puffs. My claws dig small grooves with each step, no doubt leaving a little line of tick marks to signal where I've been. They'll probably be trampled flat during the day, only to repeat the next day. The paths in the park are flanked by trees, their gnarled branches reaching haphazardly up and outwards, as if they're also looking forward to the eclipse. Small insects lay nestled in the bark, their wings shimmering like water droplets each time they flit around. A few of them chitter at each other, set to the backdrop of crows shouting. Somewhere further away, there's the quiet drone of some sort of factory belching long streamers of smoke. It's nice here. The atmosphere is great. I really like getting to cut through the park. I'm so distracted that I don't hear the sound of footsteps approaching. Rapidly.
No!
Wow. A boisterous pillar of fur and energy comes bursting out of the foliage directly to my right. I jump almost 2 feet in the air.
Hey, Bill!
Bratton stinks of sweat and dirt, his fur's matted in dark spots, plastered out in strange directions from dried fluids, and there's a glob of something fleshy stuck to his jaw. Hey, Bratton. Been out all night?
Yeah,
Just as I suspected.
We were exploring out westward since we smelled a lot of salt. Haven't found anything yet, though.
I'm sure you'll find it soon. You guys are really good at your jobs. Bratton beams at me, tail wagging side to side and knocking around some innocent saplings' branches. Bratton works as a salt scout. Salt scouts search the flesh fields outside the city in search of raw salt pools. These pools are where we harvest the raw salt for processing at the plant, then distributing out to people. An important job, in other words. Salt scouts depend on their sense of smell or sensitivity to changes in the air to seek out the signature sting of salt, so apparently many of them don't mind working during the night when visibility is poor. It's not unusual to see a salt scout heading home in the morning, dirty from a long night of exploring.
How about I redeem a hydrate and stretch check?
I don't have redeems set up yet because my plan is to like make some bespoke animations for my redeems, but I want to do the animations for that on stream, for which I have to finish my like working on animations version of my model, which I still haven't done yet because I'm having live 2D problems. It's just one thing stuck behind another. I will. I just it's just the last bits of troubleshooting now. But yes.
Nope.
I am.
Anyway. Wow, sorry.
I am doing my best to stay hydrated, but yeah. Even after a night of what must have been exhausting work, Bratton talks at a boisterous growl.
I thought I smelled you with salt, so I figured I'd catch you now. If I pick up my salt from you here, it'll make your route a little easier, right?
A smile tugs at my face. Bratton looks terribly proud of this innovative thought. We can't do anything other than tell Bratton he's a good boy, right? There's no way I can squelch that sort of enthusiasm. Thanks, it helps a lot. Not really. My route takes me past Bratton's house anyway, but I won't tell him that. Bratton gives a wide smile, showing off every single one of his sharp teeth.
No problem.
It's awfully endearing. Well, let me check what your delivery for today is.
Just the usual for me.
He pipes up before I can double check my note, so I nod as I shift the bundle on my shoulder to pull out his usual delivery. 2 packs of regular salt. Bratton tends to eat a bit more than the average. Understandable with how much time he spends moving around.
By the way,
He sounds excited. I bet he's going to talk about the eclipse.
do you have any plans for the eclipse?
The swinging of his tail has grown ferocious, batting a branch aside with enough gusto to snap it in half. Not really. Everyone seems so excited for the eclipse, which I suppose is the normal reaction. It's probably weirder that I'm more laid back about it, but that's just my nature. Besides, it makes me happy enough just seeing other people being so excited. Their feelings are infectious.
Aw, really? Come on, you should live a little.
Bratton's enormous paw slaps on my back, making me stumble forward a step. 1 or 2 salt packets spill from my bundle, but he catches them before they hit the ground.
What? Sorry about that.
It's alright. I put those packets away and managed to extract 2 packets of regular salt in the process. Here you go. The usual for you.
Thanks, Brill.
For a moment, Bratton sounds like he's about to add something, but stops himself. I don't prod, just readjusting my bundle. Sure enough, he shifts his weight from one foot to the other for a few moments in a nervous fidget before speaking up again.
Hey, you should really consider doing something for the eclipse.
Well, it's not that I'm against doing anything, but I guess I just don't have any plans.
So you'd be up for doing something adventurous?
Bratton blurts that out loudly enough to startle off a crow overhead, and I can't help being curious. Maybe?
Cool!
There's a pause before he hurries to add.
Not that I have anything planned or anything. I was just asking. But you never know what might come up, is what I'm saying.
I have to fight it back a grin. Bratton isn't good at being subtle. I guess you're right. Knowing Bratton, maybe he'll teach me about some hidden location to view the eclipse from. He knows this area like the back of his hand, thanks to his job. This shortcut through the park is also something he taught me about. So I'd actually be pretty happy if he taught me about a strange new location to visit during the eclipse. It might be a nice change of pace.
Anyway, I'll let you get back to your job.
Bratton's stifling a yawn as he says that. Even his endless energy must be running low after working all night. Sure, you should go get some rest.
Will do.
There's no warning before Bratton leans in to lick my face, his tongue dragging all the way up from my chin to my brow and leaving a sticky trail of drool in its wake. A very moist sign of affection.
Do good on your job, and I'll see you tomorrow.
And with that, Bratton's on his way. I wave as Bratton makes his loud exit, crashing his way through some defenceless bushes and leaving a trail of trampled ground in his wake. Poor bushes.
Come on.
He waves back as he turns a corner around a prickly bush up ahead, then vanishes from view. It's only then that I raise a hand to my face, considering wiping away the damp tracks lingering on my face. I end up just leaving it be. It's not a big deal, after all, and my face gets chapped from running against the wind all day. The sheen of spit soothes the raw skin a bit. So after one less check of my bundle to make sure it's secure, I turn my attention back to the path through the park. Time to get back to work. Here you go.
Thanks, Phil. You're always right on time. I really appreciate it. It's nicer to get my salt directly from you instead of my box, you know?
I understand. I'm glad I could get it to you, too.
You're such a good kid. You take care, alright?
Will do, sir. The route grows easier towards the end of the day as my bundle grows ever lighter. I have to stop to tie it tighter over my shoulder, making sure the excess fabric doesn't billow and flap around too much as I run. The deliveries go smoothly. Everyone seems to be in a pretty good mood, and one client gives me a cup of water to keep me going. Though I don't need the water, it's still a nice energy boost, and I thank her before continuing on my way. There's the water.
Yep, that's true. Sip, sip.
One block has 5 houses in a row that need deliveries. One house is occupied and I get to hand the salt to my client directly, but the other 4 are empty, so I leave the salt in their boxes. Maybe they're off at work, or maybe they're making preparations for the eclipse. Hopefully I can say hi to them tomorrow at least. That block done, I trot to the end of the street corner, but the sound of screaming catches my attention. Looking up, I catch sight of a small crowd a few blocks down. It takes me a moment of squinting to realise what it is. A punishment salt bath. There's a giant metal tub placed on the ground, flanked on either side by an overlook officer. And inside the tub, salt. And a person. A criminal. Each overlook officer is holding a capture pole, the wires at the end strung taut around the criminal's limbs, keeping them firmly in the salt bath. Even from this distance, I can make out patches of raw, wet flesh, areas where the criminal's skin has been flayed off to expose them to the salt. No doubt the salt in the bath is starting to stain red and clump together from the blood and fluids. My mouth waters a little just from the thought. Those punishment salt baths serve a dual function. On the one hand, this is a pretty good punishment. Though larger crimes earn harsher punishments, first-time offenders are usually only given a salt bath. The pain of having raw flesh exposed to salt is usually enough of a deterrent to keep people from repeating their mistakes in the future. And on the other hand, the salt used in these punishments is a bit of a delicacy. Though not as prized as honey or mercury salt, punishment salt has a savoury tang to it that almost everyone enjoys. Just enough blood gets mixed into the salt to give it a unique flavour and take off some of the harsh edge to the original salt taste.
Tasty, tasty.
I'll probably be seeing a bunch of punishment salt to be delivered tomorrow. Maybe I'll claim a package or 2 for myself. Everyone's talking about the eclipse after all. Maybe I can treat myself. Whoever's immersed in the salt gives a gurgling scream. Sunlight glints bright off the salt tub. I think we won't stay and watch though.
No.
That's probably not a great idea. As interesting as this is, I think it would be best to get back to work. I turn my attention back to the streets ahead. The officers are grunting something at the criminal, but I ignore it. Even if the smell of blood and salt in the air is tantalising, I take 1, 2, 3 quick steps and launch into a steady trot. I'm still on the job, so I shouldn't lose my focus. I've managed to drag my thoughts away from that salt bath by the time I reach the end of the block. I'm at the tail end of my route, and with almost nothing left in my bundle, each step feels light. I drop 2 salt packages into a delivery box before rounding the corner. Immediately, there's a unique sweetness in the air. Without thinking, I raise my head to inhale deeply. Even if I'm deeply familiar with the smell, it's still enticing. One can't help but breathe in deeper inhales around this area, and there's always a few people loitering around. Up ahead is the bee store. The small bone chime above the door rattles as I enter. The cages before me buzz in response. The air inside the store is already dizzyingly sweet, but the heady scent intensifies for a moment, and I utterly lose my train of thought. Standing before the entrance, I just focus on taking in 1, 2, 3 deep breaths, each lungful making me feel more languid.
You're here.
Oh wow. Don't overdo it on that one.
Okay.
It's a gruff voice sounding from further inside the snore. It's further inside the snore. That's a good start. We've not even been doing this an hour yet.
Oh,
I'm going to spoonerize something amazing by the end of the stream. I have an issue. It's a gruff voice sounding from further inside the store that snaps me back to attention. Hey, Nyag, I have your salt. Nyag stands between 2 tall rows of cages, making notes on a scrap of paper. Probably taking notes on the condition of his bees. As I make my way down the aisle, the cages around me buzz happily. Each cage contains a large, fat bee. Some are shy and turn away as I walk by, but others are more personable and bumble up to the front of the cage to poke their antennae through the bars and wiggle them at me. One cage contains a particularly fluffy bee that waggles its abdomen at me as I approach. I've helped bathe this one before, so it's familiar with me. When I pause to poke my fingers through the bars of its cage, it toddles closer and ducks its head so I can rub the area behind its head, right where the bristly furs starts to sprout. I pet it a few times, rubbing my fingers in short strokes, and it hums happily in response, flicking its wings. Honey dribbles from its mandibles, leaving damp yellow spots on the padding in the cage. Hey there, you're not supposed to be wasting honey like that.
Don't blame my bee for that. You're the one who made her drool.
Nyark must have finished taking his notes because he's made his way down the aisle towards me. The bulk of his body towers over me, leaning over to peer into the cage where the bee is rubbing at its mandibles with its frontmost legs.
My girls have had to work hard these days. You shouldn't agitate them.
Oh right, sorry.
You're fine. Just don't excite them too much.
Got it. The bee continues to wash its face off, antennae flicking periodically. Because of the eclipse, huh?
Yeah.
Not surprising. Bees are highly prized for their honey. Everyone loves honey salt, after all. Nyark's store sells both bees and honey. Bees are expensive, both to buy and to care for, so not many people can afford to buy one. But saving up to buy some honey for special occasions is much more doable. Maybe I can do that, actually, since I don't have any other plans for the eclipse. Hey, Nyark? Do you have any plans for the eclipse?
No.
Also not surprising, Nyarg is the type who largely keeps to himself.
But I suppose the eclipse should be nice to watch.
Right? I'm thinking the same thing. Maybe just take a relaxing break watching it happen.
Sounds ideal.
Think I should buy some honey for the occasion?
I do have a few bottles left for today.
We put a bottle on hold last time, I seem to remember. Because I remember we were collecting it the following day.
I think we said we were considering buying some, and then he offered to put it on hold for us anyway. So it's
Oh yeah, that might be it. Should we ask if we can work for a discount then?
I can do.
Maybe a joke would lighten the mood a little. Probably not, Phil. Probably not. Is there any chance I could help you clean up in the evening in exchange for a discount? Nyarg grits some of his teeth, seemingly in thought, but before I can tell him not to worry about it, he mutters,
I guess I could figure something out for you.
I laugh gently. I'm kidding, I wouldn't do that to you. I don't have my wallet with me, I don't usually carry it around on my route. But I might take you up on that offer tomorrow. Nyarg only grunts in response, but some of his lips quirk a little. I think he's pleased. The bone chime on the door rattles as another customer enters, and I give Nyarg a quick wave. I better go, actually, but I'll see you tomorrow? Nyarg grunts again, already turning towards his new customers. I give the bees a little wave, too. They buzz back at me, the sweet scent of honey in the air intensifying in that moment. I almost stumble as I turn towards the door, inhaling deeply one last time before stepping outside. My head clears immediately. The air just outside is still sweet, but it's nothing compared to the intensity inside the store. Outside, a few people peer into the window, looking at the bees on display there. Do you want to do these two?
Okay. It smells so good here, doesn't it? Want to go inside?
Nah.
Oh, you want to do that? Okay.
I'll do this. I think we did the other round last time, so.
Okay.
Nah, I don't want to run into the owner guy.
Why? What's wrong with the owner?
I was about to resume my route, but I paused, pretending to adjust the fabric tied over my shoulder. Not that that's even necessary. The strangers don't pay me any attention. I heard he doesn't eat much salt.
So what?
But he eats something else other than salt.
What?
I roll my eyes a little. Nobody knows, but it's not normal to eat so little salt, you know. And my friend once said he went into the store and they saw him eating one of the bees.
Gross.
I've heard all that I care to hear, so I finish adjusting my pack and set off at a steady gallop. There are a few weird rumours about Nyarg floating around, and though I once interrupted some gossipy customers, Nyarg told me not to bother in the future, that he doesn't care what other people say. Still, it irks me that people bother making up these silly rumours about people just because they're different. And Nyarg is a good guy. When I get home, I'll look through my savings to make sure I have enough to buy a little bottle of honey. He seemed pleased by my promise to buy a bottle, after all.
Thanks, Bill. I was worried you might be late since things seemed so hectic today.
I'm glad I didn't keep you waiting.
You always work so hard, so I know I can count on you. But don't work yourself too hard, you hear? Make sure you give yourself some time off from the eclipse.
I'll do that, don't you worry. I wave to the last of my customers for the day, sighing quietly as I turn the corner back onto the main street. The empty pack over my shoulders gets folded up into a little cloth bundle so I can fit it into my pocket. I'll drop this off tomorrow morning whilst picking up my salt. So my work for today is done. It's not too late when I get back home, but I feel tired nonetheless. Maybe it's the atmosphere. Though the walk back home had been uneventful, that spark in the air had still been present. It had been like trying to wade through a shallow pool of water, the energy sloughing off one's skin in thin sheets with each little conversation with a passerby. Everyone had seemed genuinely excited, and I was happy for them, truly. But now that I'm in my room, alone, I can't help wondering if it's really fine for me to have no plans at all for the eclipse. I open the window and lean out as I chew my block of salt, feeling each bite sting at my gums. Outside, the two moons glow past a gossamer curtain of clouds. They infuse the night sky with a gentle light, warding off the complete darkness, and I bask in the cold light as I reflect on the day's events. All of my customers had such different expectations for the eclipse. It sounded like Yeastall had something in mind. Same for Bratton. I guess Nyarg doesn't have any plans, but he has to work hard leading up to the eclipse. I finish my salt, dusting my hands off outside, and close the window as I retreat back into my room. Well, I guess it's kind of late to be making any big decisions anyway. And the belief that the eclipse will herald anything good is just superstition. It's a little early to be sleeping, but the day's been weirdly exhausting and I can feel sleep rolling in like a blanket of fog, steadily clouding through my head. As I sink back into my bed and stare up at the ceiling, I idly consider tomorrow's route. I guess I'm going to be pretty busy tomorrow too. Though I start going over tomorrow's route in my head, I can feel my thoughts rapidly clouding over. Night-nightville. I'll just deal with things as they happen, I guess.
Sleep well. Save, maybe.
Oh yeah. That thing.
Yep.
It's not like you can die in this game.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, we don't know. Yes, we don't know what happens at the end of the other two routes, I suppose. My eyes snap open automatically in the morning. I slept well. I usually sleep well. Running all day tends to do that to you. I resist the urge to roll over and bury my face back in my pillow, settling for closing my eyes until the alarm beetle starts chirping. The moment that familiar noise starts buzzing from the bedside table, I'm up on my feet, stroking its wings to quiet it. As I walk around my room munching on my salt, I glance outside where the skies are warm with sunlight. It's still early, but I can already hear the sounds of faint chatter floating through the window. People aren't usually up and about at this time of day. I peek out the curtains as I lick the last crumbs of salt off my lips. I can spot a few people standing around sweeping the streets or talking amongst themselves. Probably discussing the eclipse. I hurry a little as I wash my hands off and prepare to leave the house. I didn't set my alarm for today any earlier than usual, but maybe I should have. I get the feeling today is going to be a busy day.
Morning, dear.
Morning, Agari.
In a hurry, are we?
Just a little. Seems like today's going to be hectic, so I should probably get to the plant fast.
All right, I won't keep you then. Have a safe day.
Thanks, you too. I feel a little bad about rushing past her like this, but I can already tell that today's going to be a bit different. There's a strange electricity in the air, the feeling that something's going to happen soon. A few blocks down the street, I can see a group of people huddled together, heads gathered. They look like they're discussing something very important, their hands and claws quivering with excitement. I take a right turn into an alleyway before I reach them, so I won't disrupt them by running through the group. No doubt this is an important moment for them, but I do pick up the pace to a light trot. My boss might be mad if I'm late today of all days. Hydration!
Oh, hydration check. Okay.
Okay.
You're here.
Sorry if I'm late, boss.
You're not. Lucky for you.
He sounds tense, perhaps understandably. The plant feels busier than usual, with more people bustling around. He hasn't even told me to wear my mask. Yet, so I do it on my own. I don't want to stress him out for any reason. How's today's route looking?
You better go quick today. It's looking complicated.
I follow him over to the tables where today's delivery bundles are being assembled. They don't look as put together as they usually are by this time.
We're a bit behind on schedule. We got far more specialty assault requests than we planned, so we had to throw together a batch at the last moment. Didn't expect people to splurge this much for the eclipse.
He grumbles, but his hands don't stop moving. I stand alongside him, peeking over his shoulder at the delivery list so I can help assemble salt packets and divide them into bundles accordingly. It's true that the list looks far more complicated than it usually does. Longer, too. Usually the daily deliveries are almost all plain salt, with just a handful of specialty deliveries. Today the list is peppered with requests for honey, mercury and punishment salt. So much for my plans for requesting some punishment salt of my own. I better focus on getting the job done today first. Wrapping the salt isn't my specialty, so my movements are a little slow, but even that's better than nothing, judging by the way my boss gives an approving nod. His hands dart around the table, grabbing up salt blocks from their crates and wrapping them tight in the pre-cut fabric in one smooth movement, then sliding them across the table. I know he's been the head of this salt plant for 50 years now. This must be second nature to him.
You're a good kid, you know that?
Hmm?
You're a good kid.
I'm not a kid. He just grunts at that. I must look like a kid to him with his age and experience. But thanks. I just want to help with what I can. He grunts again. It's not like him to say something so mushy. He must be really stressed.
You're a hard worker and you care about other people. That's important. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You're a good kid.
I can't fight back a grin at that. Thanks, boss. My boss wraps salt at a ferocious rate, swiftly adding to the pile. But regardless of our addition to the worker line, we're a bit behind schedule by the time my boss hands over my bundle and the route notes for the day. It's peppered with ticks and checks to mark which houses need specialty salt.
Today's route is going to be tricky. Don't give anyone the wrong order now, you hear?
I'll be careful, boss. I tie the bundle over my shoulder and turn towards the door. I'll get going. Good luck here.
Be careful.
I give him a little wave as I turn towards the door. It's necessary to start my route at a brisk walk to keep my legs from cramping up later on, but I ramp up pretty quickly into a trot, then a light gallop. I do need to pace myself to avoid tiring myself out early on, though. Today's going to be a bit exhausting, for sure. But the thought of getting everyone their special salt to celebrate the upcoming eclipse keeps me going. I hope a lot of people are going to be happy. Here you go.
Thanks, man.
I think most people can immediately tell that I'm in a bit of a rush. I feel bad not stopping to chat with people, but it can't be helped today. Even with the fast clip I'm moving at, I'm already a little behind schedule. My feet slip a little as I round a corner too quickly, and I have to dig my claws into the ground to keep from falling over. At least I'll be able to unload a good deal of my cargo at Yeastall's office. The office is a bit busier than usual when I open the door to step in. The workers murmur quietly amongst themselves, heads together, hands shuffling about papers. It's usually almost silent in here to help Yeastall concentrate, so any noise feels out of the norm. I did notice the eyeballs on the spire outside swiveling around frantically as I walked up. There must be a lot going on. Sure enough, when Yeastall disengages from the pod and strides over to me, he looks tired. Despite the slick of fluids, his exoskeleton is slightly lacking in its usual luster, and he blinks more often, running his fingers through his hair.
Good morning, Bill.
Morning, Yeastall. Are you holding up all right? Yeastall smiles.
I'll be fine, thanks. It's just been a bit busy. There were a few incidents last night, so I had to stay up to take care of them.
He talks as he leads the way towards the side table where I can set out today's salt delivery.
I have to admit, even if I knew the eclipse would be hectic, I didn't expect things to ramp up so quickly.
His narrow chest rises, then slowly sinks back in as he looks towards his open pod. Without a controller, the pod lies dormant, its eyes closed and folds of flesh quivering to a stop.
It seems everyone's excited to make big, life-changing decisions during the eclipse. But with that excitement comes a lack of judgment in some people. So there's been more trouble in general.
Yeastall sighs again. I can see a sliver of sharp teeth past the thin gap between his lips.
The previous overlook did warn me that eclipses would be hard, but I might have underestimated it a little.
I give a sympathetic nod as I quickly undo the fabric of my delivery pack so I can line up the salt packets. Today's list of delivery notes is longer than usual, the paper unfolding into a long sheet when I pull it out of my pocket, and I look it over carefully as I begin counting out salt packets. This is your first eclipse, right?
That's right. At least I had plenty of time to get used to the job before it came around. I heard my predecessor was barely a decade into the job before his first eclipse.
Yeastall laughs. It's a soft, chittering noise, like a cluster of birds, and I can't help but smile in reflex. I can only imagine how hard that must have been.
Oh, yes. He never stopped telling me about how difficult that was.
Yeastel's fingers are long and delicate as he double checks my counting, making sure there's the right number of each type of salt. Tan for normal, white for mercury, yellow for honey, red for punishment. The office doesn't usually get such a wide variety of salts, but the eclipse merits some splurging, I guess.
I thought everyone deserves a little something nice for the eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
He's so sweet.
He is. He's lovely. Huh? It's like he can read my mind. He runs his fingers over the stacks of salt packets.
It's an awfully special time, so I put in a little effort and found the funds for some specialty salt. They'll go to people who've been having hard times, as a sort of good luck charm.
I'm sure it'll be really appreciated. I look up from my note to give him a smile. He blinks before smiling back. His teeth are very white.
I'm glad you think so. I'd like to help as many people as possible, to make this eclipse safe and enjoyable for as many people as possible, even if I have to spend every waking moment in the Overlook pod.
You already do so much for the community, though. Yeastel looks at me when I speak up, and I smile at him. I'm not very good at being reassuring, but I do my best. I've heard people talk about how things have become really peaceful since you became Overlook. So don't worry too much. As long as you do your best, I'm sure that's plenty. Yeastel's hair rustles as he cants his head. He seems to be considering what I said. I'm rooting for you, alright? So let me know if there's anything I can do for you. Though he remains silent, Yeastel blinks like he's just realizing something. I should head off, then. Wouldn't want to eat up too much of your time either. I've double-checked to make sure I've set out all of the salt Yeastel requested, so I pick up my pack to tie it back over my shoulder. But as I'm tying the knot, Yeastel suddenly draws a little closer. Just one pace away from me, he's tall enough that I have to raise my head a little to look into his eyes. He's looking down at me with clear focus.
Bill,
Yes?
I know you're busy with your route, but if it's possible, could you spare a few more minutes to speak with me?
Yes, anything for you. There's an unusual gravity to his voice. Yeastel is usually light and airy. Everything about him feels unobtrusive and soft. But right now, there's a clear point to his words, and his back's held straighter. Even if his gaze is gentle and his face relaxed, I can tell from the tension of his shoulders and the way that he holds himself that he's serious. I can't help casting a brief glance towards the door, though. My schedule's still pretty busy today, and I can't spare that much extra time. Especially since I should try to stay a little ahead of schedule, in case I hit any roadblocks or cause for delay later down the line. But still, I get the sense that this might be something very important for Yeastel. Even if I stay to speak with him, I should be able to manage all of my other deliveries, as long as I move quickly and don't waste any more time. What should I do? So we're staying to talk to Yeastel this time. I think it would be best to listen to what Yeastel has to say. Yup, very definitely.
Make sure to hydrate as well.
Yep. Ultimately, I can't bring myself to just leave. Not when Yeastel is making such a personal request of me. He's usually so composed and calm that it feels easy to forget that, beneath it all, he's another individual with his own worries and struggles. If he's asking me to stay, then there must be a good reason for it. And it would bother me for a long time if I abandoned him like this. And I do have confidence in my running, after all. I'm sure I should be able to finish my deliveries on time, even if I stay here for a little while. Alright. I gave Yeastel a smile as I undo the ties to my pack, lowering it once more. I think I should be alright to stay for a little bit. Yeastel blinks, hesitating for a moment before speaking up again. He sounds slightly guilty.
Are you sure, Bill? I know this must sound ridiculous, since I'm the one who asked you to stay, but I still wouldn't want to cause you too much trouble if your schedule today is tight.
Witnessing this sort of uncertainty in someone usually so unflappable is an odd feeling. I nod, considering what to say. Don't worry, I'm sure I can maintain my schedule. Besides, I think it might not be a bad idea to rest up a little bit before resuming my route. I tend to take more breaks earlier on in the day when my pack is heavier.
I see.
It's only after he mutters that confirmation that Ystol gives a small sigh, his shoulders sloping downward as he releases some of that tension in his body. The stiff strands of his hair rustle against each other and he dips his head slightly, seeming to nod to himself before he looks to me once more. There's the gleam of his teeth as he grins at me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
His voice is warm. Warmer than usual. I feel a spot of heat bloom in my chest, spreading to the base of my throat, and I have to swallow it back.
I have to admit, the past few days have been incredibly hectic, and they've been taking their toll on me. But it's hard to justify taking a break by myself when there's so much to keep an eye on.
There's a pause before he seems to realise what he said and laughs, embarrassed. His long, bony fingers draw graceful arcs as he waves a hand.
Not that I'm just using you as an excuse to rest, of course. I do have something I want to speak to you about. Let's change locations, shall we? I wouldn't want to disturb the others while they're still working.
The other workers have been diligently toiling away at their tasks, shuffling papers and jotting down notes. Some speak quietly into communication bladders, the bladder tubes pulsing as they carry important messages off to their recipients. One worker looks up and gives a curt nod upon meeting Ystol's eyes, then promptly returns to rifling through a tall pile of papers.
Let's go up on the roof, shall we?
Sure. As we pass by the other workers at their desks, Ystol gently touches one on the shoulder and leans in close, presumably to tell him where we'll be. The worker nods in understanding before promptly returning to their task. Everyone in this office knows that Ystol is sweet on Vil, right?
We'll see.
They're all in on it, right? Ystol ends up leading us out the door at the back of the office. It opens up to an external stairway that crawls upwards, tracing along the contours of the building. Even this far down, veins and nerves from the overlook spire curl around the stairwell's guardrail, gently twitching whenever the wind picks up. The spire itself is calm, however, the myriad eyes half closed and shifting their gaze languidly. The overlook tower seems to be operating automatically for the moment.
It's half awake right now.
Ystol must have noticed me looking up curiously.
It's not as alert as when I'm in the pod, of course. But even I need to take breaks now and again, and we can't just leave the streets completely unwatched. So the tower's evolved to have a half-awake state. Only half of the eyes are active, and it can't differentiate between good and bad activity without me. It just automatically alerts us when it spots an unusual amount of movement anywhere. But still, it's better than nothing, and I'm grateful I can take quick breaks without feeling like I've left my post completely unattended.
We've been steadily heading up the stairs. Each time Ystol takes a step, the pointed tip of his leg hits the stair with a metallic ping. His movements are graceful and calm. They always are. Everything about Ystol always seems graceful and calm. And I really admire him for it. It can't be easy always being so calm. So I really admire him for it. You're such a hard worker. It slips out before I can catch myself, and I feel my face grow hot when Ystol gives me a curious look. I mean, I think you must be really diligent to stay so on top of things all the time. And I think that's really admirable. There's a pause before Ystol smiles, letting out a low exhale that might have been a laugh.
Thanks, Phil. Well, you're also a hard worker, aren't you?
The wind is stronger as soon as we clear the stairwell and step onto the rooftop. The jagged shapes of the city spread out. The jagged shapes of the city spread out before us. Some buildings loom tall, trailing veins and feathery strands of flesh that sway in the wind, reflecting the green sunlight off damp spots. Others spread wide, covering entire blocks, like flat plains of bone-dry rock. The streets are full of people bustling about, no doubt busy tending to pre-eclipse business. Even from up here, it's obvious that everyone is excited. There's a strange electric energy in the air. It's an amazing view.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
We're doing the Tsukigakure desu bit, I guess. Eastel walks over to the edge of the roof near the spire. He lays a hand on it, and the flesh pulses gently against the touch of his fingers, the tower's eyes languidly scanning the horizon.
I come up here whenever I need a break. Looking at the city like this helped me regain my focus.
Of course, it makes sense that even someone like Eastel would need a place to rest once in a while. He slowly takes a seat at the edge of the building, then beckons me over, so I oblige, trotting over and taking a seat beside him, legs dangling over the edge. A stiff breeze blows past us, and I'm suddenly much more aware of how up we are. Let's try that one again.
Don't let your thirst for Eastel get you too messed up here.
We've still got half the game to go yet. I'm doomed. I'm suddenly aware of how high up we are. I don't think I'm particularly afraid of heights, but I still feel a small thrill chase down my spine if I look down. Hi, Blake. Sorry, hi, Dad. Is it fun? Is it funnier to go for hi, Dad, or hi, Daddy?
Oh, no. Make sure that the person you're joking with that is comfortable with that kind of thing before you make that kind of joke, please.
Mm-hmm. Eastel doesn't seem afraid at all, though. Partly because he's used to being up this high, I imagine, but partly because he seems completely immersed in thought. The green of the sun washes over us as he gazes over the cityscape, his exoskeleton is beautifully glossy despite his exhaustion, warm sunlight bouncing off the sharp angles of his cheeks and wiry strands of his hair. His teeth are very white when he finally opens his mouth to speak. Pausing for a moment, he finally forms words.
I wanted to speak to you about a hypothetical situation.
Oh my god, he's adorable! A hypothetical situation?
Yes, hypothetical.
He's curiously specific about that. A hypothetical. But I keep that observation to myself and only nod. Sure, I don't know how helpful I can be, but I'm always happy to try. Eastel nods in response, ruminating over his thoughts for a moment longer before speaking.
Let's say you have the chance to help a lot of people. However, it comes at a cost. You need to give up something very important to yourself in order to help those people. There is nobody forcing you to do it. There is no punishment if you don't help those people. Nobody will chastise you for not wanting to pay that price. It is purely your decision whether to pay the price and help those people. What do you think you would do, Bill?
It's a tough question. Eastel doesn't look at me, his gaze still directed out over the cityscape. And I try to see what he's seeing as I think that question over. How should I answer? This is a little bit philosophy class. My stream is not supposed to be a philosophy class.
Well, you're a good stream to approach it, though.
Yeah, it's a hum. I think I want to know about the help. I want to know whether the help would be significant is the first question. I'll just blow my nose.
Oh. That went a slightly different direction than some people were maybe expecting, huh?
I just, if I'm going to end up in VTuber sneeze compilations.
That's true.
If I ever get big, then every June I'm just going to be like Sneeze Compilation City because I have the worst hay fever.
No, I've been on VTuber sneezes already.
Have you?
Uh-huh.
Nice.
So's Blake.
My turn then, I guess.
Mhm.
Even if I think the matter over, it's hard to give a solid answer without a better idea of how significant the help is. Well, it might depend on how helpful I'd be after paying that price. I want to be helpful to people, of course, but even helping people on a regular basis takes some amount of time and energy, I think. So it's a little hard to imagine what kind of help would be worth paying a significant cost for. Yeastall nods slowly in response, still looking out over the city. His voice is a quiet murmur when he responds.
Yes, of course. Then let me try putting it in a slightly different way.
Still hypothetical?
Still hypothetical.
Yeastall seems slightly amused by that clarification, eyes narrowed in a thin smile.
You would, hypothetically speaking, like to be a better person, yes?
I nod. Of course. I think everyone probably wants to be a better person if possible.
Then let's say there's a way for you to objectively become a better version of yourself. Not in a nebulous, vague way. It won't be that you'll be wiser or more experienced. No. You'll objectively become a better version of what you are now. An upgrade, if you will.
Ah, he's contemplating starting VTubing.
You think you would want that?
Oh wow, you hit that one hard. Give me a moment. These are really, really good headphones, okay? These are like studio quality headphones.
Pat, pat. Thank you, Blake.
Hydrate. I'm thirsty.
Mm-hmm. A little thirsty, huh?
A little bit. Where's Taro? She'd be having a field day. Anyway. Do I think I would want that? I mean, yes. I mean, technically I don't breathe because I live in a pond, right?
True.
I nod. I think it's always good to try to improve. But I'd also assume that there's some sort of downside to something like that.
A fair point. Then, building on that same scenario.
Yeastall turns to look at me. The sunlight glimmers off the metallic strands of his hair, highlighting the sharp angle of his eyelids, and I find myself sitting up straighter. All of my focus is on considering his words. This feels like something important to him, so I want to consider it with the gravity it deserves.
Let's say you can make that improvement. You're guaranteed that it will make you better, and you'll be able to do better at your job. Everyone will admire you for it. There are practically no downsides to this improvement itself. But your relationship to someone you value will change drastically, and it can't be changed back. Not broken, mind you. You'll still have a close relationship with that person, but it will be different. How do you feel about that?
It's hard to answer immediately. Mixed emotions trickle through my head, and I need to filter through them. A significant part of me wants to better myself, of course. But I also value my relationships with people.
It's a tough question, isn't it?
Yeastall's eyes are narrowed, his expression gentle as he studies my face.
Sorry, I know it's a strange hypothetical to spring on anyone, but I value your opinion. I'd really appreciate it if you'd tell me your honest thoughts about it.
I can sort of understand what Yeastall is getting at, if I try hard enough. I repeat his words in my head, ruminating over each one. Well, becoming an unequivocally better person at the cost of a changed relationship. How do I feel about that?
You might want to save. That is that kind of question.
Yeah, that's true. I think it would be worth considering. What do you reckon?
Well, that is true. He didn't say it would be a negative change to the relationship. He did say it wouldn't be broken. It's still close, so...
And he might turn into, like, a giant monster and then eat us in some appropriately sexy way, so...
We're safe.
It would be hard to immediately turn down a situation like that. I'd have to give it some thought. I would definitely consider it. Immediately saying yes wouldn't be right, I think. But I would give it some serious thought. And I'd want to know more before committing, if possible. After all, if my relationship to somebody is changing, I'd want to be able to prepare for it. Yeastal's gaze remains fixed on me.
You value your relationships to other people a lot, don't you? What a choice.
I mean, there's only one way to go here, right? Of course, but mostly my relationship with you. Sorry, my brain went immediately to "Don't you want me, baby?" Like, you can't just do that to me in chat.
Don't you want me?
Don't you want me? Oh. I don't think those are the notes. Anyway, I joke to try and lighten the mood a touch, though I'm not sure it really lands. Yeastal does give a low laugh, the sound rasping from the back of his throat.
Are you trying to flirt with me? I can't say I don't appreciate the sentiment, but perhaps at a different time.
Not fair! Not fair! He gives a long sigh as he sits back, propping himself up on his arms as he gazes out over the city. Though he still looks as controlled and calm as ever, his posture seems more lax than usual. In conjunction with his pensive expression, it lends him a strange air of vulnerability, like he's struggling with something he's never struggled with before. Yeastal. I mean, Kai might well kill me at this rate. We've still got, like, another hour and a half of this, and we haven't even got to the intense parts.
Yes.
I know you said that these are all hypothetical questions, but if you wanted to talk about anything non-hypothetical, I'd also be alright with it. This is just so much, like, teenagers trying to, like, broach the topic of a relationship. I've had conversations like this.
Aww.
Oh god, mercifully I can't remember them very clearly. Yeastal cants his head, gaze cast aside in thought. A breeze whips past us, sending wiry strands of his hair floating up around him. They practically sparkle in the warm sunlight. Bishy sparkles! When was the last time you thought about bishy sparkles?
Kira.
His voice is a little softer, almost blending into the distant buzz of the city as he murmurs,
You're very kind to ask, Vil. Thank you. I suppose I haven't been terribly subtle. It's true that there are things I've been thinking about very seriously.
Hey Cozy, thanks for stopping by.
Hello.
But alas, we should be getting back to work, shouldn't we?
There's the gentle tap-tap of his feet against the rooftop as he rises, two clear sounds like the knock of bone against rock. His body is lithe and serpentine when he stretches his arms, fingers splaying out wide for a second as he extends his limbs as far as they'll reach. Looking up at him from where I'm still sitting on the rooftop, I'm all the more aware of how this person who's so important to the city's well-being is also just a single individual facing tremendous pressure. Ysel exhales slowly, the noise whistling past the sharp points of his teeth before he lowers his arms. His body language is graceful and casual once more as he reaches down to pat my shoulder. His fingers squeeze briefly before releasing.
Let's head back in, shall we?
You can't do this to me. Of course. I climb to my feet and follow after him as he starts heading back down the stairwell and into the office. Ysel doesn't say anything more as he leads the way down the stairwell. The breeze carries the sounds of the city, filtering them past our ears. Thoughtful murmurs, someone's excited shout, the thump of running feet. Pausing in my steps, I close my eyes and turn towards the endless expanse of buildings. But it's hard making out any individual sounds, even if I focus. All I know is that the city is abuzz with energy, excited for the eclipse. Things seem to be progressing smoothly. Even with my drier attitude towards the eclipse, I find myself growing a little excited for the potential that the day holds. When I snap out of my reverie and hurry to catch up to Ysel, he holds the office door open for me, smiling kindly as he ushers me inside first.
Thank you so much for keeping me company, Vil. I truly appreciate it.
The subtle signs of worry and vulnerability he'd shown while discussing those hypotheticals with me are gone, just like that. There's only the calm, collected, gentle Ysel that I've always known standing before me, holding out my pack.
Just getting a few minutes to relax and speak with you was incredibly refreshing. I'm grateful for your time.
Stop it!
I can kill you in Among Us. I can kill you here too.
It's true.
But I do hope it didn't cause you too much trouble on your route.
Not at all. I give the most reassuring nod I can. It's a white lie in the sense that it did tighten my schedule, but I'm fairly confident it won't cause me any issues. I can make this work out. I swiftly tie my pack over my shoulders once more, jostling it to make sure it's secure before turning toward the door. I'll be going then. I hope the rest of your day goes smoothly. Don't push yourself too hard, alright?
Of course. Take care, Vil.
Even a few of the other workers glance over, giving me a brief wave. I return the gesture as I pull the door open. I do one last check of my pack as I step outside, and as the door closes behind me, I catch one last glimpse of Ysel through that narrowing sliver of an opening. He meets my gaze and flashes me a smile, the corners of his eyes squinting. A look that feels like a genuine connection. And then the door shuts. A sizable part of me wants to linger. After all, I'm sure Ysel had more to say. The topics he brought up felt far too specific and heavy to be mere hypotheticals, and it doesn't sit well with me to leave the subject hanging in the air. But still, both he and I have our work to do. Too many people will be left troubled if we don't attend to our tasks. And so I turn away towards the street, taking a deep breath. The claws of my feet dig in as I take 1, 2 steps. My next steps come faster, my gait widening as my pace picks up. Then I ramp up into a gallop, the scenery around me smearing as I gather speed. My own worries can come later. For now I need to focus. It wouldn't do to leave people without salt when such an important day is coming up.
Thanks for the delivery.
No problem.
Hey, you be careful now, alright?
Will do, thanks. I have to hurry. I'm usually never this behind schedule. If I move quick, then I should still be able to finish all my deliveries before the end of the day and avoid getting to anyone late. But I can't really afford to delay anymore. My feet skid across the ground as I turn a corner, my claws raking deep furrows into the dirt as I straighten back up without dropping my pace. My next 2 clients are absent from their homes. As much as it pains me to say, that's good for me today. I quickly slot their salt packets into their boxes and resume running. I'll say hi to them on another day, when I have more time. I'm pretty sure they're also busy with their own eclipse preparations. Distracted trying to think of any other shortcuts I can take without skipping any stops on my route, I don't hear the sound of approaching footsteps the instant I step into the park. And I certainly don't expect a hefty bundle of fur and fangs to come bursting out of the foliage to my immediate left.
Ow!
I don't manage to stop quickly enough. Neither does Bratton. He collides squarely with me, knocking us both into the grass.
I was waiting for you.
You were? I gently push at Bratton's shoulders so he'll get off of me. Not that this is a particularly terrible position to be in. Bratton's fur is quite soft and clean today. He must have taken a shower after last night's exploring, and his body is very warm. But he's still heavy, and getting pressed into the grass for too long might make dirt seep through my pack and taint the salt. So you know who Blake voted for last time then?
Mm-hmm.
Bratton moves obligingly, clambering to his feet and holding his hand out so he can also stand. His hand is huge, the pads of his paws squish slightly against my palm.
You're still on your route, right? You're a little later than usual today. I was kind of worried I missed you.
Yeah, I had something kind of important to take care of.
I'll run with you.
Thanks. Fair enough. He's never done this before. Still, it's not like I mind the company, and Bratton is in fantastic shape. Even as I run at a steady jog, he keeps pace with me just by walking quickly.
Sorry, typing in chat. What?
See? I found something really interesting last night.
So that's why he was waiting for me. He must have been really excited to tell someone. What was it?
I'm not sure,
Huh.
but I'm doing my best to figure it out.
There should be an award for his ears.
There really ought to. Wiggle, wiggle.
That sounds difficult. Bratton looks around before he continues speaking, like he's making sure nobody else is around. Visibility is poor in the park anyway, so even if someone were eavesdropping, I'm not sure if he'd be able to spot them. Nonetheless, he looks satisfied that we're alone and continues. He's so excited that his voice is starting to get gravelly at the edges, like he's fighting back the urge to start barking.
You think it's really important, you know? I've never seen anything like it before. And I think it could change things. If it's what I think it might be, then this might be huge. I might go down in history as someone incredible. So, I'm really excited to figure out more about it.
Bratton's theme is good, yeah. He's so enthusiastic that it's infectious. I can't help smiling as I nod. Well, I don't know much about exploring, but I hope it's something great. You're always working really hard, and it'd be nice if people got a chance to really appreciate all the work you put into your job. Bratton beams, showing all of his teeth. We jog along in silence for a few moments. By the way, did you put in an order for any salt today? Bratton looks a little like he was startled out of his thoughts by that. His furs puffed out a little larger than usual.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Would you like it now?
Sure.
I slow to a walk so I can fumble with my pack, carefully extracting one of the salt packets without dropping any of the others. Here you go.
Hey, do you have a few moments to spare?
It's my turn to be caught off guard. Still holding out Bratton's packet, I give him a curious look.
I want to show you something.
He's so excited he's drooling slightly, a thin string of spittle hanging from his jaw. It must be his discovery from the other day. Well, I feel a little bit bad, but I have to turn him down. I don't have that much time to spare after spending time with Yeastall too. Sorry, Bratton. Things are kind of hectic today, so I have to hurry. Maybe I can meet you after my route's over? Aww. Bratton's ears have tilted down a smidge, the wagging of his tail slowing significantly.
Hey.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I guess you're a little behind today, huh?
He's pretending to be fine, but I can tell he's a little unhappy about it. Oh, poor puppy. Are you sure? I'd be happy to come back here after I'm done delivering. I just don't want to keep anyone waiting. Bratton considers that for a moment before shaking his head, his tails wagging with gusto once more.
Yeah, it's fine. On second thought, I guess I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be showing you. So I'll check and come back later when you're not busy, and I'm sure we won't get in trouble for it.
That'd be great. Thanks for the invitation, though, Bratton.
No problem.
He reaches out a massive paw, probably to clap it on my back, but he course corrects when he remembers I'm wearing the bundle over my shoulder and ruffles my hair instead. His claws are huge and sharp, but they graze against my brow.
I like you a lot, you know.
If it were anyone else, I'd suspect this as a very well-constructed attempt to guilt-trip me, but Bratton isn't the type for anything like that. So I manage a smile as I gingerly duck out from under his paw. Head pats!
Wow.
I like you a lot too, so I'll be looking forward to seeing your big discovery in the future.
Sure thing.
The slick of damp ground underfoot gives way to firm rock bed as we near the edge of the park. Oh, yeah, here. I'd still been holding Bratton's salt packet, and I hold it out to him.
Right, thanks. Be careful on the rest of your route, alright?
Will do. I tighten the bundle over my shoulder to make sure it's firmly in place, then head off at a steady jog. Halfway down the block, I turn to glance over my shoulder. Sure enough, Bratton's still there, watching me. I raise a hand to give him a brief wave, and he excitedly returns the gesture before finally turning and sinking into the foliage of the park. Headcanon, Bratton doesn't actually have a house, he lives in the park. I can't...
Sorry.
He seems happy there, right?
That's true.
I can't help wondering what it was that Bratton wanted to show me. Part of me feels like I may have missed something big. But for now, I have to focus on my job. My next delivery is a good few blocks away, so I turn the corner and ramp up into a speedy gallop. Here you go.
Hard at work today too, huh?
Yes, sir. Things have been a little hectic today.
Can't be helped, huh? Well, I won't keep you. Be careful now.
Thanks. Have a nice day. I'm starting to get a little out of breath. I usually manage to do my entire route at a steady pace, but today's been a day of ups and downs. I've had to rush a lot more after that talk with Eastel, and I can feel my legs starting to ache a little. I slow from a sprint to a jog so I can go down my list of notes. I've finished most of my route now, with only a few more blocks to run, which is good. A quick glance up at the sky confirms that the suns are starting to set already, the sky is tinging their usual musty green. It's starting to get late, which means I'm cutting it a little close. The palpable tension in the air has been rising all day, too. There are more people hanging around the streets than usual, some rowdy and causing trouble, others pressed together in quiet intimacy. I turn the corner to take a shortcut down a street and find my foot splashing into a puddle of red. The metallic stench that lingers in the air is unmistakable, and it's cut through with the signature sting of salt. No doubt the remnants of a punishment salt bath. Or multiple salt baths, possibly. The metal tubs used for salt baths tend to leave behind dark rings of moisture on the ground. There are 2, 3 circles overlapping each other. I can't tell if it's the result of one tub being jostled around or multiple tubs used in quick succession. I move quickly past this site, both because I can't afford to loiter, but also because the combined smell of blood and salt is making me hungry. I haven't had the chance to take a break or eat anything today. Hydration check.
Oh, yep. Hydrate and posture check. Wow.
Yep. Oh. I risk a brief glance back as I head down the street. I've left behind a trail of dark footprints, radiating out from the pool of blood, but fading with each step until they vanish. The puddle of blood is still there. It will seep into the ground eventually, leaving a dark stain for a while. Kind of like the eclipse, huh? a big happening that will leave an impression for quite a while. I'm not a very poetic person. I feel a little smug for thinking of a comparison like that, but I can't spare too much time to self-congratulatory nonsense. I drag my thoughts away from that drying puddle of blood and look back towards the street.
Have a nice day, Vil.
Thanks. Ooh. Wrong voice. Thanks. You too. Time's getting awfully tight, but I should be able to finish my route on time if I keep up this pace. And I make the mistake of breathing a quiet sigh of relief to myself as I dash past a block of closed storefronts, closed for the eclipse, and round a corner quickly enough that my claws skid on the ground. I almost slam right into the bustling crowd that's loitering around, breathing in a huge lungfuls of sweet, honey-scented air. What's going on? It's usually never this crowded. Sorry, excuse me. Passing through? Sorry, I have to get through here. I gingerly squeeze past a crowd of people. It turns out these people have formed a line that trails out from Nyarg's bee store, but the line has grown tangled and messy as it trails out into the streets. Getting past them is a struggle, and more than a few people shoot me dirty looks that I have to pacify by shifting the bundle on my shoulders and clarifying that I'm just here to make a delivery. Most grumble, but grudgingly let me through. A cluster of people blocks my path near the entrance, and I wait for a few people to finish their business and exit so I can slip in as the next customers enter. Oh no, the yawns have started.
Oh no.
Careful with breathing, folks.
Yep.
I check over my bundle with waiting, peeking through the folds of fabric to check how many more deliveries I have to make. Although I lose count when I'm distracted by a conversation going on nearby.
You've heard the rumors about the guy running this store, right?
I haven't. What do they say about him?
They say this guy sucks energy out of other people.
I roll my eyes while my head's ducked. I haven't heard these rumours myself, but it sounds silly. I've never heard of anyone eating anything other than water and salt with additives, much less sucking the energy out of other people. Oh god, keep the energy drinks away from me. I haven't had anything with that much sugar and caffeine in it in fucking months. I would explode.
You know, someone once asked me what the taste of a Monster energy drink was, and I looked them dead in the eye and said despair.
I don't think I've ever actually drank Monster. I tend to avoid this stuff. But yeah, I had a can of Pepsi with takeout the other day, and I was wired for several hours. I just really cut back on fizzy drinks. No way, that's so creepy.
Right? But it makes sense, doesn't it? With how gruff this guy usually is?
Yeah, he always feels kind of off, you know?
Maybe that's why he has this store. You know, to lure in victims.
The two of them laugh raucously. I just tighten... Boo, caffeine. The two of them laugh raucously. I just tighten my bundle across my shoulders and ignore whatever else they're saying. It's all nonsense. Nyarg shouldn't have to put up with this stuff. He's a good guy. Hopefully these idiots won't actually say this stuff to his face. Fortunately, a small cluster of excited customers exit the store the next moment, and I take the chance to slip inside, murmuring that I'm excuse me.
What?
Murmuring that I'm just here to make a delivery, and I'll be out soon. Inside the store, I manage to weave my way past the crowds of people looking at bees and find Nyarg near the back of the store, where he mans the counter alone. All of his tentacles are hard at work managing 6 different tasks at once, and his teeth are bares as he breathes in deep, rasping puffs. He must be stressed. Hey, Nyarg.
Oh, Bill.
He doesn't even turn my way. Wait, wrong voice. He doesn't even turn my way. Not that I can blame him. He's busy dealing with a customer on one side, packing up a bottle of honey with one set of tentacles, and soothing an agitated bee with 2 others. The smell of honey in the air is almost dizzying, stirred up by the constant movement of people in the store, and I can't help but take in a deep breath before busying myself undoing my bundle. Busy day today, huh?
Riz.
His tentacles swiftly wrap around a bottle of honey in fabric. then tie a piece of twine into a bow to secure it. His customer thanks him profusely before leaving with their purchase in hand, babbling excitedly to their friend about how tomorrow will be a special treat.
Seeing everyone happy about their purchases makes it worth it, though.
His voice is as gruff as ever, but the corners of his lips quirk just a fraction. He really does seem happy when his customers are happy. Seems like it. I hurry to pull a package of salt from my bundle, double-checking my notes to make sure I have the right packet for him, then lay it on the counter. I'd hand it to him, but all of his tentacles are occupied packaging 2 different orders at the same time. I'll leave this here for you, alright? With how busy the store is, it would probably be best if I don't take up too much of Nyarg's time. I give a little nod and turn to leave when the touch of a tentacle against my shoulder stops me. Nyarg is good, but I want to do Nyarg's route off stream so that I can do it with the safer work filters off.
Oh, that's true.
I want to see what Kako can do with this design. Well, it's not like I could do that on stream, Blake. That would get me in trouble. He sounds serious. He always sounds a little serious, of course, but this feels different. Yes? That wasn't the voice. Yes? There's a pause. Nyarg's tentacles never stop moving, neatly processing and wrapping orders for customers standing on the other side of the counter. But the tentacle resting against my shoulder only squeezes slightly. He addresses a customer first, wishing them a nice day as he hands them their package, before turning slightly towards me.
If you could spare the time, would you mind helping me out a little?
I'm a little surprised, not about the request itself. Any reasonable person would ask for help managing a store this busy, but because I've never seen Nyarg ask anyone for help before. I can't help feeling a little flattered that he'd ask. That said, I need to think this over for a moment. Unfortunately, I don't have much time left today, and I do still have a few more deliveries to make. Reaching back, I test the weight of my bundle with my hands, trying to gauge how much time I would need to deliver all of these before the end of the day. I should be able to hit all the stops on time as long as I hurry, but if I stopped here to help Nyarg... No, I really can't risk getting people their deliveries late, especially on the day before the eclipse. I don't want to risk ruining anyone's preparations for a big day. Sorry, Nyarg, but I'm on a pretty tight schedule today.
That's understandable. You did come in a bit later than you usually do today.
Yeah, things have been pretty hectic today, so I'm a bit behind. And I don't want to be late with anyone's deliveries today. Nyarg nods. His tentacles keep working. I'm really sorry. I wish I could help. I can come around after my route's over if you need any help closing up shop. He shakes his head. His attention already seems to be wandering away from me, tentacles artfully wrapping up another bottle of honey even as he speaks.
It's alright. The worst of the rush should be over soon. You should get some rest after your work.
Are you sure? It's no trouble coming by after my route. He nods again.
Thanks for the offer, but it's fine.
I feel like I've put somewhat of a damper on things, but I guess it couldn't be helped. Sometimes things just work out that way. Alright then. Hopefully things won't be too hard for you. We're nearing the end of the day after all. I tighten the straps of my bundle to make sure it's firmly in place. It's grown pretty light by now, the fabric weighed down by only a handful of salt packets, but that doesn't mean my remaining deliveries are any less important. Behind me, I can hear a few customers huff impatiently. No doubt they think I'm holding up the line.
Take care.
Most of Nyarg's tentacles are hard at work wrapping up bottles and soothing agitated bees, but he still spares one to give me a small wave. I wave back as I step away from the counter. VTuber yawn compilation time. I'm surprised that's less of a thing than sneezes, honestly. Maybe most VTubers have just better breathing habits than I do.
I wouldn't place any bets, honestly.
Gotcha break!
Aw.
You too. Good luck. Nyarg doesn't respond anymore, already busying himself tending to the next customer in line. They want to look at the bees Nyarg has up for sale, since they're considering outright buying one. They must be big spenders. Nyarg steps out from behind the counter to lead them to the cages. I guess I should go. The crowd outside the store has thinned out a little bit, but it's still sizable. At least those people from earlier who'd been gossiping have either gotten into the store or have wandered off, tired of waiting. I gingerly squeeze my way past the waiting line and back onto the streets, inhaling deeply. Already the sweet scent of honey is much thinner, cut through with the musty smell natural to the air. Okay, have good foods.
Odysseus, enjoy your salt. Nom nom.
Overhead, the skies are starting to streak through with darker shades of green as the suns dip towards the horizon. Though there's the strong urge to linger, to wait and see if the store will quiet down at all, and even to turn back inside to help Nyarg, I know I shouldn't. So I don't look back as I dig my heels into the ground and take off at a quick sprint down the street. At least these last few deliveries won't take too long.
Earsville, seems like you had a busy day, huh? You're cutting it pretty close.
Yeah, things have been a little hectic today.
I can imagine, since tomorrow's a big day and all. Good work. You should go rest up.
Thanks, I will. Have a good night.
You too.
Even smiling feels exhausting after the long day, but I still make sure to wave as I trot off, pawing at my pack to make sure all my deliveries have been taken care of. All done, and with barely a minute to spare. I really did cut things pretty close. But at the same time, I don't regret it. It feels like what happened today was pivotal, and absolutely worth a bit of extra running. I end up taking the long route back home, backtracking a little bit. I walk past Nyarg's store, which has gone quiet by this time. I can still see flickers of movement inside, but it looks like it's mostly just Nyarg cleaning up the store by himself. I cut through the park. The atmosphere here is different after dark, the spindly trees casting twisting shadows across the uneven ground. The air feels colder, too, and it feels different without Bratton's boisterous presence walking by me. I walk past the Overlook office, which continues to watch silently over the city, the spire's eyeballs lazily cast over the landscape, though they blink slowly now and again, as if growing tired. I think of Yeastel in his Overlook pod, devoting his life to guarding the city. Tomorrow is bound to be a big obstacle for him, and my chest aches with the desire to help him in some way. I give the spire a small wave. Even if he's bound to be too occupied to see such a small gesture, it's the thoughts that count. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that the spire's largest eye gives a slow blink in response, but it still eases my mind a little as I turn away. My thoughts feel fuzzy as I walk back home, watching the three suns sink out of view one at a time. When I get back to my place, I just grab a salt packet and collapse on my bed. I usually don't eat in bed, but I'm too tired to take care today. I roll over on my back to unwrap the fabric and drowsily bite off a small mouthful of salt. The familiar sting spreads through my mouth, hot and sharp, and I try not to think about it as I let it dissolve on my tongue. Even eating feels exhausting. I turn my head to glance towards my window. Past the closed curtains, I can see a sliver of the night sky, 2 moons lazily traversing that dark expanse. Though I bring the salt to my mouth for a second bite, I find that I just can't be bothered. I'll eat in the morning. I do the bare minimum to wrap the salt back up so it won't scatter over my bed during the night, but that's the absolute limit of my energy for the night. Even knowing I have to get up and clean up before falling asleep, my limbs feel so leaden and I find myself drifting off. But even as sleep begins to overtake me, I find myself thinking over the events of the day. A small shiver of nervous anticipation reaches down my spine, all the way to my toes, prompting me to wrap my blanket closer around my body. So much for a quiet eclipse. Tomorrow will probably be a very important day. Okay, I'm just going to take a break and... Oh, wait. take a quick break and refill my water bottle, and also stand up. 1 second.
Good idea. Yes, yes. Do the stretchies. There we go. Well,
Okay.
welcome back. Wow.
I should do these streams more often. I'm doing way better on posture than I normally do with gaming streams.
Oh, that's true.
I was able to stand up without creaking. Something
I mean,
something at the like right where the back of this where this seat of this chair joins the back. It has just worn out and now just puts my bum to sleep unless I'm really careful about how I sit.
oh no, you need one of those like bagel cushions.
Maybe.
They're
Right.
comfy.
Okay. I jerk awake to the sound of my alarm beetle buzzing. I immediately close my eyes and roll back over, burying my face into my pillow. The desire to go back to sleep is tremendous, which is pretty unusual. I almost never have trouble waking up in the morning, but my limbs still hurt a little bit after all the sprinting yesterday. My thoughts immediately snap to the strange talk I'd had with Yeastall, and that certainly wakes me up. I jolt upright in an instant, my drowsiness dissipating like so much smoke. I sit up in bed, scuffing a hand over my face and picking off the pus that's dried over my eye during the night. A cursory check of the time tells me I'm not late, but I should move quickly if I want to be on time. So I do. And I try very hard not to think about the eclipse. I'll have the time to spare for that once I'm actually on my route. Huh?
I told you, take the day off.
I'd made it on time to work, squeezing past some loitering crowds in the street, jogging the last stretch of the way to the salt plant, only to find the place quieter than usual. Though there was still the familiar rustle of salt pouring into filters, the scrape of long poles mixing through vats, and the glop of honey being emptied by the bucket, there were fewer workers than usual. The boss seemed a little less harried than usual too, and when he beckoned me over, he sprang that surprise on me.
Delivery roster today short.
He has the delivery list in hand, and he flips through the pages, swiftly double-checking each one with a stubby pencil.
Turns out, a lot of people asked to have their delivery for today put on hold. Heading out of town because of the eclipse, I imagine. Or have plans of some sort. Whatever the reason, we barely have half the usual numbers of deliveries.
He scratches at the scales on his snout with the back of his pencil.
Felt silly making all of you run your routes, so I reorganized the routes. And a few of you have barely taken any days off. So I'm giving you today to rest. Go enjoy the eclipse.
Use your PTO, folks. If that's a thing. I say this as somebody who literally, I've never taken a day of PTO from my job.
Thanks you.
I mean, the thing is, if I need time off, most of the time I'm not in work, so I can just do what I want. Like, I'm on strike at the moment, and it doesn't make any difference to my daily life at all over the summer.
Oh, okay. Squints. But okay.
And this way I get paid without having to do any paperwork. I automatically give a dip of the head in thanks, but it still hasn't properly sunk in. I build my daily schedule around my work, and suddenly being told that I have the whole day to myself is jarring. The boss seems to notice my hesitation and gives me a hard clap on the back. Even if he meant it playfully, he's a strong guy, and that casual whap is almost enough to bowl me over. He laughs as I wheeze.
Go on, kid. You're young. Go do something fun. You deserve it.
You're sure there isn't anything I should be doing?
You doubting me?
No, sir. Leaving the salt plant empty-handed so early in the day feels profoundly weird, and I'm not quite sure what to do with my hands as I head towards the door. It's almost a relief when the boss calls me right before I reach the door.
Right, Will. Hold on a second.
Yes, boss? He tromps over, digging through the pocket of his apron and pulling out a few scraps of paper. He returns most of them to his pocket, but holds one out to me.
Somebody from the Overlook office came by earlier and gave me this. Said it's for you.
Ye still sent somebody? The boss nods. The piece of paper is neatly folded into a square, and unfolding it reveals a short note written in Yeastel's impeccable handwriting. Do you want to read that one?
I was hoping I could see you today if you aren't too busy. I'll be at the Overlook offices all day, so please visit me if you're able. Please don't worry about it if you have other plans. Thanks. Yeastel.
Aww. It's written so politely, which is very much like him. I smile to myself as I fold the note back up and tuck it in my pocket.
Something wrong?
No, nothing's wrong. Yeastel just wants to see me about something. Hey, boss.
Yeah.
What are you going to be doing during the eclipse? He smiles, the mask straining to stay in place on his snout. I can almost picture all the teeth he's showing. Excuse me.
Aw, hydrate.
The boss doesn't smile often, but when he does, it's very kind. So it's a pity the mask is in the way.
I'll be watching the eclipse with my partners while we enjoy a packet of mercury salt together.
Mercury salt?
That's right.
He gives a proud huff, arms across over his chest.
Jin thought it was extravagant, but I know Dirth loves it, so I went for it, as if I'll let this special day go by without doing something nice for the loves of my life.
I mean, he does own the factory.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds really nice. I hope you have a nice evening.
We will. So you should, too.
I wish the boss a good day and leave soon afterward. I don't want to delay him any further when there's still work to do. Hopefully he and everyone else at the plant will be able to finish up quickly and enjoy the rest of their days. Though I do still feel some guilt about taking off by myself when everyone else is working hard, I also don't want to waste the time that was kindly given to me. Standing out in the streets, I watch people go by for a few minutes. It's actually not as crowded as I feared it would be. No doubt a lot of people are travelling, or are already holed up with people important to them. Far down the street, I can see what looks like a small brawl. I guess that might also be something important to the people involved, but I do hope it doesn't last too long. It would be awful to spend the eclipse day in a salt bath.
Mm-hmm.
No kidding. Tugging my cloak closer around myself, I inhale deeply. The air feels electric, stinging at my nose. Alright, I guess I should get moving. The streets are abuzz with activity as I head towards the Overlook office. If there was a strange electricity in the air yesterday, then the very atmosphere is crackling with energy today. As I walk past a popular garment store on Main Street, the window shatters as a body comes hurtling through it. Fragments of organic glass go skittering in all directions as the defenestrated individual rolls across the pavement, shouting and howling. A second figure comes bowling out of the store moments afterwards, landing him first in a vicious tackle. I like the fragments of organic glass going skittering. I'm picturing them all like sprouting tiny legs and running off.
I mean...
In this game?
It might happen.
Hey, Kako, thanks for coming by. We're having a great time. It's a lovely game.
Bye, Kako.
What was the... Can I ask what the thought was behind having, like, salt be the staple food? How did that come about? I was really interested in that.
Ooh.
As a choice. There's only a short pause before fists start flying as both parties attempt to pummel each other. A small crowd gathers around the fighters. Some people spectate quietly, while others cheer and shout. It doesn't matter if these fighters are strangers or not. They are no doubt engaging in something that matters a great deal to them too, on this auspicious day. Fights, too, are important, after all. This may be a way for them to settle a long-standing grudge. I peer past the onlookers for a few minutes before continuing my way, giving the crowd a wide berth just in case. It wouldn't do to get embroiled in a big brawl, after all. I've just put the fight behind me when a pair of Overlook officers run past me, shouting for the crowd to back off and give the fighters room. My steps slow as I glance over my shoulder. The fight is still going on, judging by the shouts and scuffling noises, and the officers wave their batons to get the attention of onlookers, urging them to step aside. Of course, it's the Overlook's job to ensure that things go smoothly on Eclipse Day. It wouldn't do for strangers to interrupt a personal fight, or for the fight to involve third parties. It must be difficult. There's so much going on today. Up ahead, a loud shout catches my attention. A small crowd is gathered around a tall figure who stands with arms raised, shouting indistinctly. I think they're announcing something important. The crowd gathered around them seems excited. This, too, is probably something the Overlook officers will have to keep an eye on. I can see the Overlook spire up ahead, looming above the other buildings. The spire's eyes dart back and forth rapidly. Even from this distance, I can see the spire's flesh pulsing rapidly in spots, frantically pumping blood through its veins. I don't think I've ever seen it so active. Yeastall must be working harder than he ever has. The note he left for me had seemed so candid, but Yeastall always seems to try and seem at ease. I can't imagine this is actually easy, even for him. The fight behind me sounds like it's escalating. The heavy, meaty sounds of knuckles pummeling into flesh echo down the street, but I don't pay them any attention. Instead, I quicken my pace, heading towards the Overlook officer to run. I don't want to keep Yeastall waiting any more than absolutely necessary. Excuse me? My first thought is that the office feels weirdly quiet as I push the door open, which is odd. Shouldn't it be bustling with activity today? Correlation with sort of taste of skin, notion of being something unusual. Oh, interesting. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Miru did the writing and Kako did the art and stuff, so.
That's cool. It's like I love the setting. The setting has so much going for it in terms of like throwing your expectations for a loop. Like, I'm a fantasy writer. Most of my fantasy settings are not this weird. Occasionally, but mostly not. And I'm always I like things that can surprise me like that. Having spent 20 years reading derivatives of Tolkien, frankly.
True.
And some of those are very good, but they have a very specific aesthetic. Anyway, it's odd. Shouldn't it be bustling with activity today? And then I realise what's going on. The office is emptier than usual. Some desks look like they've been abandoned in a hurry, paperwork thrown in all directions. Others are manned by their usual occupants, piled high with papers and communication bladders, their tubes crisscrossing the floor like cobwebs. There's the constant, furious scratches of pen tips on paper, punctuated only when a worker grabs a bladder to whisper furiously into it. The communication tubes pulse non-stop, carrying a steady stream of messages out of the office to the Overlook officers out in the field, I assume. Doing my best not to interrupt their concentration, I make my way past their desks towards the Overlook pod in the corner. So immersed in their jobs, the workers all ignore me as I step over their communication tubes. Yeastall? The eyes on the pod are half-lidded, and it's not until I speak up that they blink open and turn to me. I got your note, but I can come back later if you're busy. There's a brief pause before the eyes simultaneously shut. Then the pod cracks open with a wet squelching noise. A really fun time, throwing ideas around together. Mira has an excellent head for world building, creating characters that feel authentic to the worlds. Yeah, it's like the whole thing is cool. I hope you do more stuff that's kind of like this, because it's good stuff. I haven't animated a thumbs up for my model yet. I should do that. I would thumbs up if I could. As a brief pause, I simultaneously shut the pod, correct someone with squelching noise. Yep. Thank you. I am hopefully soon going to be doing some live 2D animation streams of my own, working on the model. But I'm making a special model to do those streams with, and I haven't finished it yet because I'm having animation difficulties. But soon. Pod cracks open. There we go. Welcome to the fish pond.
Hello.
No, I'm glad you came.
Oh no, we're back to this again. Are you actually moving closer to the mic, or is that all a voice effect? Because it's genuinely a stunning shift in register.
I'm moving a little bit closer sometimes. You'll probably know when I'm leaning in a lot.
My first ever subscriber. Thank you, Blake.
Yay!
I got one. Sorry, I should do my bitch and thank you for submerging. Because I live in a pond, get it?
You punned from the pond. It's a pun pond.
It is indeed. Nice. Yay! Okay. Thank you for subbing, Blake. Hey. Congratulations. Right then. No, I'm glad you came. Yeastel's voice is muffled by the sounds of fluid sloughing off him. His exoskeleton sheds the coating of slime easily, and when he brushes his hand over his body, it comes off him in viscous strands, plopping into the pod's pool in big globs.
Thank you for dropping by on such short notice, Vil.
Thank you, Kako! Ah!
Ah! Thank you, Kako.
Whee!
Eat it.
It's still you.
It was a rather sudden request, so I wasn't sure if you'd be able to make the time.
He bends down to brush the last of the pod's slime off his body, then carefully extracts one leg from the pod, letting the slime drip off it completely before he sets it on the floor. Then he repeats the process with the other foot. And then his balance slips. Perhaps because of a residual streak of slime, his foot skids sideways and he topples over. Fortunately, my reflexes are quick enough that I can prop him up before he hits the floor or crashes back into the pod. Whoa, are you alright? Yeastel seems stunned for a moment, eyes wide in shock. His glaze slides over to me, studying my face before he gives a small nod.
Ah, yes. Thank you. I suppose that could have been dangerous if I hit the floor.
Behind me, I hear a worker ask if everything is okay, but most of the others don't even seem to have noticed anything happening. Their focus is incredible. Perhaps that's what it takes to keep things running smoothly during the eclipse. One moment, it is a hydration check.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Wow. But it was a very fishy sparkles kind of moment there.
Yeah.
Cherry blossoms falling
Yeastel
into your arms.
Yeastel is so pretty, I can't handle it. I carefully help Yeastel back on his feet, finally realizing how exhausted he seems. Without the coating of slime, it's more obvious that his exoskeleton is lacking its usual luster. His eye is half-lidded as he gingerly rubs a hand against the soft connective tissue near his jaw.
I'm afraid I rather lost track of time, and I haven't been able to rest in a while. I might be more exhausted than I...
I realise saying this at 2:15 in the morning my time is a little bit off, but remember to rest, folks.
This is true.
You need to rest. I keep my voice firm as I look up at him, meeting his gaze steadily.
Of course. But my work.
Yistel is clearly distracted, eyes closed as he struggles with his thoughts, but he clearly needs to rest. I need to persuade him somehow. Oh, this is a tough choice. It's always difficult to know which of those is going to, like, actually get someone to pay attention, right?
Shut up, like, shut the fuck up, like.
I suppose I'm not the most egregiously nocturnal creature on this stream.
Save, maybe, before you make the choice?
Oh, yeah.
I say, remembering how badly I saved when we were streaming it on my channel.
Oh no, mommy and daddy are fighting.
No. No. By the way, I'm not into that.
That's
so
fair
just
enough.
so you know.
Okay. Right. Telling me can't work as well as if he's in poor conditions, so he needs to take better care of himself for the future. I feel like the first one is going to be more effective, but I kind of want to pick the second one because it's going to push him less. I think. He can't just think in the short term. Even if this eclipse is important, he also needs to think of the future. Yistel, I know your work is important, but this won't be your only eclipse, right? You're our overlook. You'll be looking over the city for a long time. So you can't run yourself ragged like this. So please rest for a moment. There was also something you wanted to talk to me about, right? Yistel's attention snaps over to me, as if I'd said something terribly important. He blinks hard before giving a small nod.
Right. Right, of course.
He inhales and exhales slowly. I watch the soft portion of his exoskeleton swell with that breath, settling back down as he empties his lungs. After 2 or 3 more slow breaths, he seems much calmer and offers me a smile. His usual smile.
You're right. I think a short break would be good.
Even though he still looks exhausted, it's good to see him at least acting like he usually does. I can't help giving a small sigh of relief. Yeah, that sounds great. We end up back on the rooftop, beside the dormant spire. It, too, seems a little strained. The eyes seem somewhat bloodshot as they lazily scan the horizon, and when I gingerly touch one of the protruding lumps of flesh, it feels a little hot. The skin throbs slightly beneath my touch, and I can feel the steady pulse of fluids beneath the stretch of skin.
I'm afraid I've overworked it somewhat.
Yistel approaches slowly, his hands running across a large vein snaked over the handrail.
It's not in any danger of serious damage, of course. I'm sure I would give out long before the tower ever does. But I'm afraid I don't yet have the experience and intuition that the previous overlooks did. They could often pinpoint sources of danger and commotion and look towards them more quickly. Lacking that intuition, I have to search the city more frantically in search of any trouble, and it strains the eyes. I apologize.
His voice is gentle as he directs that last statement at the tower. The tower is silent, of course. Not that it could ever speak, but without an overlook present in the pod, it doesn't even glance Yistel's way. It simply, quietly gazes over the city, automatically searching for any significant signs of activity. Activity that it's sure to find plenty of. Now that we're on the rooftop, I'm much more cognizant of how unusually active the city is. Here and there, colourful plumes of smoke crawl up from between buildings, lit from beneath by the flickering light of fires. Celebratory fires, perhaps, or malicious ones, possibly. To our east, I can make out a large crowd gathering at an intersection. It boils with activity, though from this distance it's hard to make out what the individuals are doing. From all around us, the sound of shouting and cheering and screaming carries on the wind. The breeze always whips away those voices before we can make out specific words, but the impression we get is always the same. Today is a day unlike any other in recent memory. Controlling that chaos must be a gargantuan task. I can't imagine how difficult it is for Yisol and the other Overlook workers. Ah, right. Yisol?
Yes.
I'd been lost in my thoughts as I stared out over the city, and Yisol had taken the chance to quietly take a seat beside me. His legs swing off into the empty air off the edge of the building as he looks up at me. I take a seat as I continue. The office seemed much emptier than usual. Did something happen? I assumed it would be much busier on the eclipse.
Oh, that. I'm afraid we lost quite a few workers today. Officers, too. They are individuals, after all, with their own priorities and desires. It may be our duty to watch over the city, but it's difficult to place duty above something truly important to you. Say, traveling someplace to meet someone very important, or settling a lifelong grudge against a very bitter foe.
Yistol's voice is steady and soft. There's no trace of ill will or bitterness in his voice. In fact...
Part of me wishes they were here to help, of course. But another part of me is grateful. It means they trust me enough to look over the city, despite their absence. I should have prepared for this in the first place. It was my mistake, not anticipating it. So I'm grateful they trust in me regardless.
He seems pensive. I badly want to comfort him, to make him feel better, but it's difficult knowing what to say. They were right to trust you, weren't they? I'll just have to do my best. Things are going smoothly so far, after all. I passed by some commotion on the way here, but the officers got there really quickly, and it didn't look like it was getting out of control. You're doing a great job keeping the city safe.
I suppose I'm holding on so far. But that isn't good enough.
He still seems absorbed in his thoughts. Unwilling to interrupt him, I wait quietly until he goes on.
I've managed to avoid any catastrophes so far, but only barely. I've had to claw my way through some tight situations already, and I'm sure things will have escalated while I'm taking this break. I'll have to scramble to catch up once I'm back in the pod, but you were also right that I need to rest periodically to maintain my focus, or else I'm liable to make more mistakes, which would be equally bad. I don't have the experience or composure or intuition that the previous Overlooks did, and though they assured me I would soon catch up to them, I'm afraid that won't be the case. Even if this eclipse goes safely, it may be sheer luck. Perhaps this year's eclipse has been on the tame side so far. So if future eclipses are rowdier, if there is more going on, I'd surely fail to keep the city safe. There is a deficiency I need to fix.
The outburst is a little shocking. In all the time I've known Yistol, he's always been unfailingly calm and kind and gentle, thoughtful and composed. Someone who always kept tight control over himself and was sharply aware of everything going on around him. There had always been an ease to him that I'm now realizing I've been taking for granted. It hurts to think that he's been harboring these distressed thoughts, and I hadn't been able to help him. Yistol, we never know what will happen in the future. None of us. So I don't think it's fair of you to be so hard on yourself. And I don't think you're deficient in any way. Like the previous Overlook said, if you're just lacking in experience, then that'll fix itself as time goes by, won't it? You're not lacking in anything. Pause.
Ellipses.
10, 10, 10, as they say.
Hmm.
That certainly caught his attention. Yeastal looks over at me sharply, eyes wide, and my voice dies in my throat. Had I said something wrong?
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. I didn't mean to surprise you.
I must have looked taken aback, because Yeastal suddenly smiles. It's a little rueful, a little embarrassed, highlighted by the way he touches a hand to his face, finger tapping against his jaw.
I was so absorbed in my thoughts, I was practically talking to myself. There's something I should have explained first. It's why I asked you to come here, after all. I apologize. I shouldn't have hurried to say those things.
He seems to calm down somewhat, taking another deep breath before he shifts positions to look at me more directly.
Bill, have you ever met one of my kind before?
The conversation's not going exactly where I expected it to. Regardless, I give the question some serious thought, then shake my head. I don't think so. Not to my memory.
Right. Then I assume you aren't familiar with our life cycles either.
Probably not.
Then, please let me explain. It won't take terribly long.
Oh yeah, flirting by explaining mating processes of your species.
Oh boy. Myself and many of the others who have served as Overlook, our kind has always been perceptive. We've always excelled at pinpointing anomalies in our surroundings and addressing them as quickly as possible. Of course, we don't take this for granted. In the long history of this tower, there have been many who have served without being the same kind as us. And not all of our kind are fit to serve as Overlook either. It's a position we work towards and serve with gratitude. Those of us who are selected as the Overlook have always been honored by the position and pour all of our efforts into doing the best job we possibly can. Because we love the city, of course, but also because we don't want to have any regret. We don't want to look back at our time as Overlook and think, I could have done better. I could have done things differently. And in that vein, there is something all of the previous Overlooks did before experiencing their first eclipse. Bonding with a partner.
I understand now why Yeastal reacted the way he did to my attempts at comforting him. This thing he was lacking wasn't an abstract criticism of his own abilities, but something concrete he felt he'd failed to do. Bonding with a partner. I feel slightly embarrassed knowing I'd misunderstood him so drastically, but only nod to show that I'm following along with his explanation. Yeastal continues.
You see, no matter how perceptive we are still just one individual, one mind. By bonding with a partner, however, we evolve a step further. We create a deep connection with a second mind and become something greater than a sum of its parts.
Oh no, this is a theme I really like as well. I was not expecting this. I've written
dear.
things like this. And you feel like you should have made that bond before the eclipse?
Oh,
There's
you're gonna die.
I'm gonna fucking die. I have published writing where I have done like a character that's a bit like this, some of the same themes. I might flag it up on Twitter after this. There's a pause before Yeastal shakes his head.
That isn't quite it. I don't regret having put off my bonding until now. Of course, it might have made it easier on myself to survive this eclipse if I were bonded. At least, it would have given me peace of mind, knowing that I'd become the best possible iteration of myself before facing this challenge.
If only Tara were here to take some of the fire.
Sorry, it's all for you.
Oh, man.
But I also didn't want to bond before this eclipse because the bonding process would necessitate changing my relationship with that individual. A rather drastic change, and one that can't be reversed.
The puzzle pieces are falling into place. I mean, come on, Bill. The puzzle pieces should be, like, glued in place at this point. Not subtle. I can see now why Ystal was discussing those hypotheticals the other day. This is what he'd been worried about. My worry eases just a fraction. With a better understanding of what Ystal was trying to say, I think I can better understand his concerns. A drastic change to a relationship. Thoughtlessly, I murmur the words under my breath. Ystal nods and continues.
Yes, one that can't be undone. Because we need to devour the person we're bonding with.
I see. That makes sense. Now that I think about it, I've read about individuals like that in the past. They're somewhat rare. Individuals who can meld into another body to become a part of them, or individuals who can absorb others to become a combined entity. Individuals who aren't complete without assimilating another into their body in some form. Time for VOD. Sunday is VOD day. Sunday is VOD day, but I'm busy on Sunday, so we're doing it day. Is 6-8 the 69 of voring? Questions one has. Actually, it's 7-8 at this point here, but.
Could say 7, 8, 9.
It must be a hard way of living, needing to depend on another in order to grow. Having fun, Blake. I nod sympathetically. Alright, I'm starting to get what you mean. I guess those hypothetical questions weren't really hypothetical after all. I give a small grin as I say it, and Ystal responds with a laugh. It's the most relaxed I've heard him sound today, and it eases some of the tension that's been building in my chest. Ask the questions, coward. Do it. Ask the questions. Tonight is a night for forbidden knowledge.
Here, I dear.
I suppose not. I'm a little embarrassed now, thinking of how transparent that was. But I badly needed to get it off my chest, and it was the only way I could think to bring it up with you.
Ystal looks away once more, gazing out over the city. Someone below us shouts, but we can't see them from where we're sitting, and the words are indistinct. Just one more sound adding to the ambience of the city.
Bill, you're intelligent. I'm sure you can guess what I'm getting at.
Of course. The air feels electric, like it's filled with sparks that burst around me as I give a small nod. I can't say I'm happy, exactly, but I do feel like this is a tremendously important moment.
I'm glad.
He smiles without looking over at me, his gaze still directed out over the rooftops as he closes his eyes. His hand, however, creeps closer to me, fingers extended as if searching for something. He's such a teenage boy as well. It's too cute. I'm gonna get eaten. Well, it's an eat or be eaten world.
And it is getting eaten world.
I promptly extend my hand, allowing his fingers to touch against mine. His bones are flawlessly smooth and cool to the touch as they graze over the back of my hand. Then he squeezes my hand, just once. His grip is gentle but tight.
Hand holding. But even so, it wouldn't do for me to skirt around the issue. I need to talk to you about this in a straightforward and honest manner, or else it wouldn't be fair. It's just that I've never done it before, so I hope you understand if I seem somewhat nervous.
Ysel exhales slowly before looking to me once more. His eyes are fixed on me intently, the amber of his sclerae amplified and almost glowing in the warm sunlight.
Well, you're a highly attentive and diligent person. I've admired those traits of yours and aspired to be like you in some ways. There's a warmth to you that not everyone has. It's the same warmth I'd like to show to the city. I respect you deeply. I cherish you.
Not fair!
I'm sorry. And in many ways, it pains me to put you in this situation. The bonding process would bring us closer than ever. Our minds would be brought together as one. We would be able to share our thoughts, our feelings, our dreams with each other with absolute clarity. As an evolved being, we would always be at peace with each other. But there are things we would lose. The ability to touch and see each other like this, for one. And because our lives would become one, there are things you would lose. We would make every effort to maintain connections to your old life, of course. I deeply respect the life you have right now, and would never want to take away any of it from you. Not a single bit of it. We would talk to the same people, visit the same places, experience the same things again. But it would never be the same. A bonding process is a big decision, and I don't ask this lightly of you. I won't ask you for your answer immediately. I would only ask, Bill, would you please consider bonding with me tonight during the eclipse?
I'm okay. Hydration check.
Hydration check? All thirsty.
Little bit. Hearing the facts laid out like this is dizzying, even when they're coming from someone as usually composed and calm as Ysel. But because it's him, I can tell this is something tremendously important to him. His straightforward honesty means a great deal to me, and I give a firm nod. I mean, I'm a freshwater bug, so the ocean would be a problem.
The River Nile, maybe?
Eh,
The Nile,
Amazon.
even?
Shut up, you. Of course, I'll give it some serious thought. Ysel exhales hoarsely, as if he'd been holding his breath.
Thank you.
See?
I knew you wouldn't be the type to immediately reject it or run away, but still, I was quite nervous for a moment. Thank you for listening to me and for taking my request seriously. I appreciate it more than you can imagine.
Discord is crunching your call.
Oh, uh-oh.
That sounds like it's better now. Okay.
You want me to redo the line?
I think I can live.
Oh. You think you might live a little better if I don't, huh?
He withdraws the hand that had been touching mine and brings it to his face. brushing his fingers against the corners of his eyes. Already, he looks like a tremendous weight has been lifted from his shoulders. And I feel the same, of course. Seeing him looking so relieved, and hearing that important question from him without the veil of hypotheticals, feels refreshing, in a way. We hear a raucous bout of cheering from somewhere far away, the shouts petering off into just a few stray whoops, and Yeastel gives a dry laugh.
I suppose that's as good a signal as any that I need to return to my work.
He rises to his feet without waiting for an answer, then promptly offers me a hand. I accept it gladly, clambering upright and dusting myself off.
I take it you aren't running your usual route today. I noticed you don't have your pack.
Yeah, the boss gave me the day off. He said I should enjoy the eclipse.
And he's absolutely right.
We're heading down to the stairwell back into the office, and Yeastel smiles as he holds the door open for me.
It's a special day, after all. I know how hard you usually work. You more than deserve a break today.
You probably deserve that break just as much, if not more.
Unfortunately, not today. Maybe next time, if there's a slow day.
A very special day. Yeastel already seems in much better spirits. The break seems to have done him a lot of good, and he stretches his limbs as he approaches the pod. The pool of fluids inside gleams, the unbroken surface practically shimmering in the light.
But today, I have plenty of work to get done.
And with that, he steps into the pod. The fluids well up around his feet, pooling up higher as he begins to lower his body, and I blurt out in a hurry. Yeastel,
Yes.
good luck with your work. You can do it. I know you can. You're going to do an excellent job keeping the city safe. And I'll be back in the evening, right before the actual eclipse. Let's talk then. A heartbeat passes before Yeastel nods. He smiles. Though it's seemingly his usual gentle smile, I can sense a flicker of something more in the way he looks at me. A sort of intimacy that wasn't there before, like we're sharing a secret. I guess we are, in a sense.
I'm looking forward to it. Have fun out there, Vil, and stay safe.
Not fair. The pod closes up around him in an instant, the two halves of its flesh shell coming together with the wet sound of suction. The numerous eyes on the pod roll once, as if trying to find their focus, open wide, then immediately go half-lidded. Yeastel must have promptly directed all of his focus outside. I'm sure it's necessary. The city must be escalating its activities as we grow ever closer to the time of the eclipse. Everyone else is also deeply immersed in their work, and I walk past them as quietly as I can, careful not to step on any of the communication bladders. Nobody so much as glances at me as I step towards the door. The creak of it pulling open sounds so loud to me, but to them it doesn't exist. I'm glad such diligent people are keeping our city safe. I end up wandering the streets outside. I need to think about Yeastel's proposition, of course, but I feel like I need to calm myself first before I can address something so important. So I walk. It feels good to walk. My body is so accustomed to running my daily route that I'd been feeling antsier than I realised, and simply taking to the streets at a brisk walk helps me clear my head. My feet carry me down familiar paths, and I let my eyes wander over the various sights and sounds. This is all very, very familiar territory to me, but today, on the day of the eclipse, everything is different. Just a little. Just enough to make me appreciate the city all the more. I walk past a small crowd. They've gathered around one individual who stands tall, arms spread, speaking in a booming voice.
Today is the day, friends. In just a few hours, the eclipse will happen. Good fortune will come to all of us. And so we depart now, off into the bone plains, to hunt the giant earth whale.
The crowd erupts into cheers. Several arms are raised high, hands clasped tight around spits. Poor earth whale. Leave the earth whale alone.
Earth whale is friendship.
Very much so. This must be a hunting party. Everyone looks ecstatic, practically mad with excitement, and it's almost infectious. I find myself smiling as I walk by.
They say the earth whale cannot be hunted, but will prove them wrong. We'll be remembered for years, for decades to come, and everyone will feast on earth whale tonight. To victory!
To victory!
To victory!
Don't eat the whale.
No. No,
Leave-
eat the whale.
Leave eating seafood to me.
Mm.
The triumphant shouting and hollering is audible long after I turn the corner and off the street. The park is quieter. Not that it's totally free of the eclipse's influence, of course. I pass by what looks like a couple embracing each other, whispering to each other and giggling. They seem very happy, and I give them a wide berth, trying to pass by quietly without interrupting anything. Elsewhere in the woods, I can hear boisterous conversations and shouts, but all sounds are muffled by the ambience of the woods, and I look for an isolated spot where I can sit and think. It doesn't take terribly long for me to find a small grove of trees a short distance off the main path, flanking an old, fallen log. The finger pods on the ground squirm as I approach, no doubt alerted by the pad of my feet on the ground, but they settle down once I take a seat. All around me, I can hear the chittering of insects and the distant caw of crows. The city's bustle comes from someplace even further away, an ever-present but now muted reminder of what's happening today. And, sinking into this relaxing atmosphere, I close my eyes.
Luna, would you please consider bonding with me tonight during the eclipse?
It's hard to really imagine what this bonding would be like. But it hadn't sounded like anything as simple as being eaten. I've heard of individuals like that, of course, who need to assimilate or absorb other people in order to survive or grow stronger. They often formed bonds with those who had naturally short lifespans, or who were fated to die shortly after procreating. These relations often seem short but passionate, no doubt amplified by the fact that one party would only live on in the other's memories. What Yeastall described, however, sounded completely different.
The bonding process would bring us closer than ever. Our minds would be brought together as one. We would be able to share our thoughts, our feelings, our dreams with each other with absolute clarity. As an evolved being, we would always be at peace with each other.
We, not I. Huh. I won't vanish. I'll still be there. I'll be with Yeastall. I would lose something. A lot, possibly. Things would change drastically. But at the same time, I would gain something. A lifelong partner and trusted companion. And the city would benefit. Technically, it would be a small sacrifice for the sake of many. But still... Would Yeastall chastise me for hesitating over this decision? Would he be upset with me if I said no? No, I don't think so. I end up quietly talking to myself as I sift through my thoughts. Yeastall isn't like that. That's why he gave me this time to think to myself. And while his request had certainly caught me off guard, his honesty and sincerity had made it much easier to accept. With how passionate he'd seemed during that conversation, it was hard to imagine he wanted to bond with me purely for selfish reasons. From anyone else, I might have felt more uneasy being faced by this decision, but I feel like Yeastall had wanted me to understand the full scope of the situation, and had wanted me to think it over on my own, so I wouldn't feel pressured. This is my decision to make. I think of the various people in my life, my work, the things I enjoy doing, the places, sights, and sounds I've experienced. I think of how my relationship to these precious things might change if I decide to bond with Yeastall. And I think of Yeastall. I think of long days spent with him, at his side, the two of us working together towards a common goal. I think of his calm smile, the gentle cadence of his voice, his calm and reassuring presence. I think of the time I've known him, of how much I've come to respect him and enjoy his company. I think about how it might be to grow even closer to him, to work towards protecting the city together with him. Absorbed in my thoughts, I barely noticed the time going by. It's the rustle of leaves that finally snaps me back to reality, and I sit up from where I'd ended up slowly lying down on the log. The sudden movement is enough to set off the finger pods nearby, and they wriggle unhappily as I clamber to my feet. The rustling turns out to be a small child barging through a nearby bush. The child gives me a confused look, as if demanding to know why I'm here, and I smile in return. Past the dense wall of foliage, I can hear an adult calling for the child. Maybe they're too big to get through the bush. Going around all the trees could take them a while. Sorry, there isn't much to do here. Let's go back, okay? It sounds like somebody is looking for you.
Oh, shit! Here.
Well,
Sorry.
sorry, it caught me off guard.
I thought you might need a slight break from all of that narration.
It's okay. The child pouts at first, making a face, but reluctantly holds out a hand. Oh, we got Blake, it's fine. I take the offered hand, tugging the child along gently as I go back through the foliage, the way the child had come. As we emerge from the bush, brushing leaves out of our eyes, the parent looks over with a start. Sorry to surprise you. I thought it would be best not to let a little one wander around the woods. It only takes a small tug at the child's hand to get them to return to their parent's side, and I'm thanked profusely. The child is so excited for the eclipse, I'm told. They wanted to go exploring on this special day. Last time, they'd found an enormous cluster of bile flowers in the woods, but had never been able to find it again, and they were sure they'd find it again today. The eclipse really is a special day for everyone, isn't it? I give the parent and child a small wave as I leave, wishing the child good luck, but suggesting that maybe they explore together. The child, perhaps understandably, seems offended by this unwarranted advice given by a stranger, but the parent, at least, thanks me once more while seeing me off. It feels good being able to help people. It was a small gesture, one that cost me virtually nothing, but it was still helpful to someone. And that knowledge makes a warm feeling bloom in my chest. Thinking from this perspective, I can get a better understanding of why Yeastall values his job so much, though it might be difficult for me to devote myself to the same level he does. Perhaps it's a goal worth some sacrifice. I think back to how exhausted he'd seemed when he emerged from the pod, practically dizzy from the long time spent looking over the city, but at the same time he'd seemed so proud and fond as he looked over the buildings from the rooftop, one hand touching against the spire's long veins. I look up to the rapidly darkening sky. In the far distance, I think I can make out the very tip of the spire, though it might just be my imagination confusing a wayward tree branch for the spire's top. Either way, I should probably head back. I think it's time. The streets are busier than ever as I make my way back towards the Overlook's office. Most people are clustered together in groups, the biggest ones overseen by Overlook officers standing at ready in case there's any trouble. I hear talk of a romantic confession going well. Someone decides to travel out west into unknown territory and is recruiting mates to travel with them. Another person has decided today is the day they will begin the process of setting up their new business. The announcement is met with cheers. Overhead, the suns have drifted across the skies, seemingly on a collision course aimed at each other. The moon is a darker shape that crawls ever closer, as if intent on devouring the suns. My skin almost feels tingly from the energy in the air, and I find myself jogging, then running towards the Overlook office. I want to see Yeastall. I want to let him know of my decision. The Overlook office is even quieter than before when I enter. Sun Vor, Sun Vor, Sun Vor.
Definitely make sure it's in safe for work mode. I think you already did, but
I multiple checked. Yeah, adult content is off.
Okay.
Yeah. Final goals: eat the sun.
Mm-hmm.
I do a video series called Eat the Planet. Got to work up. Actually, you know what? Before I do this, I'm going to pop to the loo.
Okay.
Because I have been doing a good job of staying hydrated.
Yay!
Where's my... one of these-
Hydrate and all the checks. Yes,
I
yes.
think it's that one.
Oh,
Yes. Bio break. Back as quickly as possible.
Ooh, fancy. Yeah, it's time. I'm also gonna hydrate, but I will stay here to entertain stream a little bit. If I can be entertaining also. Ah yes, it's time to put my evil plan into fruition and take over Eat's channel as well. Mwahaha! Mwahaha! Also, I should be transparent. I have played Yeastel's route before because I've had Meeting in the Flesh for a long time. Like, I tried it out when it was in demo. So, but I'm letting Eat enjoy it for themselves. Wow, absolutely how. It's such a good game, and I'm really happy that more people are playing it and discovering the world and getting invested and interested in everything that's going on. Because, yeah, from the moment I picked it up and played it, it was really striking. Like, the art, of course, is gorgeous and so evocative and everything, but the writing as well, it is just mwah, love it. Exactly. Lore building, world building is so cool. And I know that Kako and Miru and Inkathic have another game as well on Itch.io. A slightly different one.
Okay, I'm back. Let's get rid of that one.
Yes. I'm just saying, Inkathic does have another game if you want to play it another time with a Tree Lady Warrior.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like trees. I'm a fan of trees.
I'm sure this tree will be a fan of you too.
I mean, I do want to do more like of these kind of read-along streams because I find them really fun. And I am looking for more games to do. And it's a good collab as well.
Oh yeah, I enjoy.
Yeah, you're certainly winning this one. Like, it's not a competitive game, but I feel like of all the people I've ever met on the internet, you possibly have the least weaknesses or hardest to figure out your buttons to press. Like, even Tara, I've figured out how to press her buttons, but like,
it's the dragon scales. They're protective.
Challenge accepted.
Good luck. Good luck.
Okay. The Overlook office is even quieter than before when I enter. The lights are off and the desks are empty. The skies outside are rapidly darkening as the moon begins encroaching upon the sun's light, and the interior of the office feels almost desolate. It takes a moment for my eyes to adjust to the darkness, and then I realize the pod in the corner, alone, is still occupied. Ooh. I'm definitely going to check it out, though. Trees sound good. Its eyes are all closed. Yeastel must be completely focused on the events happening outside. Unwilling to interrupt him, I walk over to the pod and sit beside it. It pulses gently, radiating an intense warmth. Like Yeastel himself, it's an incredibly comforting presence. Just being near it tends to put one at ease. Despite not having run my route today, I find myself starting to grow languid and sleepy. I guess even just walking around and thinking about things is more exhausting than one might imagine. It does feel like it's been a very long day, after all. And if it's been a long day for me, it must have been exponentially more draining for Yeastel. I hope he'll be able to take another break soon.
Bill.
Huh? I'm glad that she jumps in game at that. I bolt upright at the sound of Yeastel's voice. I hadn't meant to fall asleep, after all. Yeastel is crouched beside me, a hand still hovering over where he'd evidently been hesitating to shake at my shoulder. He laughs as I look to him, rubbing a hand on my face.
You caught me by surprise. I didn't realize you'd arrived. Were you waiting long?
No, not at all. It's just that the pod was really warm, and I guess I dozed off. I'm still trying to rub sleep out of my eyes, and Yeastel smiles fondly.
You should have gone home if you were so tired. It's been a busy day, after all. Our work here is pretty much done. The eclipse will be soon, and the officers have already been dispatched to all existing trouble sites, as well as standing by where we expect there might be any more trouble.
Oh, are we going to do it in the office?
Uh-huh. Oh. Maybe. Right, maybe he has a bedroom somewhere. You don't know?
This man doesn't sleep. We
No,
know
it's
this. See you, by the way.
Even the remaining workers here had small things they wanted to do before the eclipse happened, so I let them leave. So it took me a little longer to finish those last tasks. Sorry to keep you waiting.
It's fine. You don't need to apologize. I'm finally feeling alert once more, and I sit up straighter to peer at Yeastel's face. He still looks tired, but a little more at peace. With all of the work done for this eclipse, he must be feeling tremendously relieved, not like earlier when he'd seemed so stressed. Besides, I couldn't leave. I need to answer your question. 10.
Yeah, 10. Right.
For a brief moment, I see a trace of nervousness return to Yeastel's features. His eyes widen marginally before settling back into his calm gaze, his lips parting to reveal a sliver of teeth. They press together thinly as he nods.
Of course.
There's the subtle scrape of his exoskeleton on the floor as he moves to sit on the floor, facing me. The remaining light from outside filters through the window, highlighting his features from the side and glimmering off stray strands of his hair. His gaze feels more intense than ever as he looks at me, not demanding or prying, but patiently waiting for my answer. Despite his earlier signs of unease, his voice is quiet and calm as he says,
Bill, would you bond with me?
His words have a beautiful clarity to them. They almost seem to echo in my chest, throbbing alongside my pulse. The calm cadence of his voice is betrayed by a focused way he regards me, as if I'm the only thing in his world at the moment. A warm flush of gratitude washes through my veins. Regardless of my answer, I'm incredibly grateful that he would ask such a thing of me. Though I never aimed for it, nor expected to become someone so important to Yeastel, I've always treasured our friendship. Knowing that he feels the same way, and perhaps to a greater magnitude than I can truly comprehend, is almost dizzying. But even as my pulse thrums in my ear, I struggle to reach the final answer. I try to keep my voice as calm and clear as Yeastel's had been as I give my answer. One moment.
Oh. Okay. Wow.
I will. I'm almost startled by the words that leave my mouth. They pour out before I can stop myself, but as I comprehend what I'm saying, I also understand that this is the right choice. The words come faster, spilling forth my true feelings. I want to bond with you, Yeastel. I want to be together with you and help you.
I see.
Yeastel blinks. Is he shocked? He blinks again before he seems to understand what I said, and repeats.
I see. You'll do it.
It catches me completely by surprise when he suddenly wraps his arms around me and pulls me close. Very close. Closer than we've ever been. His body feels warmer than it looks, too, when his exoskeleton presses against my chest. Yistel's head bows, almost touching my shoulder, and I can feel a deep exhale whispering against my throat. It's a little shaky.
Thank you so much, Phil. I can't put into words how much this means to me.
His fingers tug into my robe, and he pulls me even tighter. I'm pretty sure I've never seen him this emotional, nothing even close, and it truly drives home how important this is to him. I gently rub a hand at Yistel's back, or as much of his back as I can reach. My palm ends up awkwardly touching somewhere between his side and his shoulder blade, feeling the smooth expanse of his exoskeleton. You don't need to thank me for anything, Yistel. I was also really glad you asked me. I know it's an incredibly important decision for you, and if you feel safe asking it of me, then I'm really honoured. Even with the way he pulls me close, I can feel even closer if I close my eyes. I can feel his breath against my skin, the wiry strands of his hair brushing against my cheek, the way his grasp pulls my cloak taut around me. I feel enveloped in his presence. It's very comforting. We've known each other for a while now, haven't we?
We have.
And I've always felt really comfortable around you. I've always thought it's a good thing you're the Overlook, because I know the city will always be in safe hands with you around. So if I can help you and be with you, then I'm really glad. There's no one else I'd rather do something like that with. Yistel doesn't respond, but his head nudges against my shoulder, almost like he's nuzzling me. He stays like that for a moment before finally pulling back a bit. One arm pulls away from around my shoulders to touch at my face, gently brushing some of the hair out of my face.
You don't know how happy it makes hearing you say that.
He leans back in, this time to touch foreheads with me. Stray strands of hair slide against each other with gentle metallic noises when he leans back once more.
I can't wait to bond with you.
You almost lost it giggling on that one. I heard it. I know
I'm
you're
trying
doing
to
this
put in-
deliberately.
I'm trying to put in the enthusiasm he's feeling. Look at his little happy face.
The smile on his face is as gentle as ever, but there's a closeness and warmth to it that feels different. It feels like he's truly addressing me as Yistel, as an individual, rather than as the Overlook to the city. I beam back at him. His gratitude and joy are infectious, and there's a hot feeling fluttering in my stomach. I'm excited too. There's more I want to say. It feels like a dam has broken, and there's an endless number of things I want to say. But before either of us can speak, a loud murmur from outside catches our attention. It's only when we look up away from each other that we realise the skies outside have suddenly grown much darker, and they only continue to fade. The eclipse! It must be close.
Will, come on.
There's the light tap-tap of his feet against the floor as he still gracefully gets to his feet, holding out a hand to me. When I take it, he pulls me up in one go.
Let's go watch it.
But shouldn't we bond first? Yistel laughs. It's a very light and joyful sound. He continues to pull me along without hesitation, headed toward headed towards the door that leads to the outside stairwell.
Bonding takes a while, and I know superstition dictates it's best to make our important decisions before the eclipse actually happens, but we may already made our decision, haven't we? Technically speaking. And this will be our first time seeing an eclipse since we got to know each other. So I want a good view. Something I'll remember forever.
I guess I can't argue with that. With that said, I pick up the pace. All the weariness I'd felt earlier seems to have melted away at some point, I feel like, as long as Yeastel is pulling me along, we could go anywhere and I wouldn't feel tired. Of course, we don't go far at all. We only hurry up the stairwell, up onto the roof. The streets all around the Overlook office are cluttered with people. Most are gathered in small groups. Some are overseen by Overlook officers. The rooftops nearby are also dotted with people looking to get a good view. Others peer out of windows or climb the numerous light poles. The electric energy in the air is practically palpable. Yeastel and I stand near the spire, where the numerous eyeballs languidly sweep across the horizon. Is it also aware of what's about to happen, I wonder? And as if in response to my question, one of the eyeballs swivels straight upwards. The suns seem so much brighter as they start to converge. Even with a dusting of clouds marring the skies, their light feels warmer than usual. Perhaps it's the proximity between them that amplifies their light. Perhaps it's a trick of the eye, because we're not used to seeing them travelling in such direct collision course. Perhaps it's just our excitement that heightens every emotion in the moment. Regardless, we watch the three suns creep closer and closer. I find myself holding my breath without even realising it, and it's a cry from below that has me exhaling sharply. Someone on the ground below screams in what sounds like euphoric pleasure. Another person joins in soon afterwards, but most of us are quiet. Especially when the moon begins to cut through the sun's warm light. I feel a ripple travel through the crowd, through the very atmosphere where through the very atmosphere when the moon's shadow first bites into the sun's glow. Seemingly uncaring of the effect it's having, the moon marches slowly onward, on a direct path to devour the entirety of the sun's glows. Yeastel stands perfectly straight and tall beside me, gaze directed upwards. But his hand reaches out, as if searching for something. My hand. As soon as I take his hand, his fingers squeeze tight around mine.
Happening.
His voice is only a quiet murmur, but it still feels terribly loud. The only sounds I can hear now are muffled whispers and murmurs. The very air feels oppressive and heavy, like it's weighing down upon our throats, and speaking at the moment feels taboo. So I only nod, squeezing tight at Yeastel's hand. We don't look at each other, but we're at least very aware of each other's presence as he continues to gaze upwards. The warm glow of light above is at first a half circle, then a crescent, then only the slimmest sliver. And then there's only the ominous ring floating above us. A perfect, delicate circle of sunlight that majestically adorns the dark skies like an eye watching over us. The very air feels heavy in my lungs. My chest feels tight. The eclipse bears down on us, an overwhelming presence greater than any of us would ever equal, and it makes my skin prickle. It feels physically impossible to tear my eyes away from the skies, even as the tiniest pinpricks of light begin to pierce past the moon's shadow. But a gentle tug at my hand pulls me away one step, then another. The suns have begun to fight their way out from the moon's shadow when I finally manage to look away.
Come on.
Yeastel still speaks at a whisper, though. He glances back briefly to give me a smile as he continues to lead the way. We go back down the stairwell, of course, through the door that leads into the office. The streets below seem to have also broken free of the eclipse's allure by now. I start to hear murmurs and shouts drifting up towards us as people rejoice in what they had the chance to witness. An overjoyed scream is the last thing I hear clearly before I shut the office door. The office is instantly quieter, the noise from the streets seeming to come from a million miles away. There's just the sound of our footsteps as we walk across the office and towards the pod. Is it okay for me to come in? Yeastel had stepped into the pod without any hesitation, but I can't help hesitating. The pod is the Overlook's domain, after all. I'm not sure if the pod can even hold the both of us. But Yeastel just laughs. Gently, not mocking. He keeps a steady grip on my hand as he ushers me to step in beside him.
Of course, anyone that I acknowledge is allowed to enter the pod. And besides, it will have to learn to recognize us once we're bonded. So doing the bonding process within the pod is a useful method. My predecessor highly recommended it.
I see. Even with that encouragement, entering the pod is a strange feeling. The fluid inside is lukewarm and thick, but the surface parts easily as I begin to dip my foot in. My legs glide in with practically no resistance, and when I stand with both feet in the pod, the fluids close up around the circumference of my limbs.
Here, come closer.
Yeastel's bony arms rest over my shoulders, easing me closer. Fluid sloshes around our calves, lapping at the open edges of the pod but never spilling over. Should I take off my things?
Yes, if you don't mind.
A small nod as I begin to undo the fastenings of my cloak, letting it drop to the floor. And as soon as I'm bare, Yeastel suddenly wraps his arms around me, pulling me into a tight embrace. When he drops his weight down, I'm brought down along with him, and together we sink into the welcoming pool of fluid. The roof of the pod snaps shut with a loud squelch, sprinkling us with flecks of fluid, but the interior of the pod is still somehow lit with a warm glow. Submerged in the pool of liquids, I worry for a moment how I'm meant to breathe, but I'm given my answers soon enough when I feel the fluids begin to subside, as if they're being sucked back into the pod. My head breaks through the surface, and I gasp. Inside the pod, the air tastes warm, with a deep sweetness to it. Not like sugar, but like meat. I'm still inhaling deeply, trying to grow used to the sensation when Yeastel's head also breaches the surface. The level of fluids continues to shrink down, sinking below our shoulders.
Don't worry. The pod will adjust to us. It'll make sure you're comfortable.
As if to prove his point, he sits back, tugging me along so I'm seated in his lap. The fluids slush around him, and the plush wall of flesh behind him conforms to the shape of his back. Sitting this close to him, I can feel his exoskeleton start to grow warmer. Not just his exoskeleton, but the very air feels hotter and wetter and sweeter. It feels like I'll melt if I stay in here too long, like I'll become a part of the pod. It's making my body feel oddly sensitive, and I shiver as Yeastel's hand traces around my side, then rests against my back. His fingertips are two hot points of contact against my skin that demand a great deal of my attention. But far more pressing is when he brings his face close to mine.
Phil.
His voice echoes in this tight space, sending the tiniest ripples running across the surface of the fluid pool. The level of the fluids has sunk further down, lapping around our sides, warm and comforting without being imposing. Yeastel was certainly right in saying that the pod would make me comfortable. I feel utterly at home here, in Yeastel's warm embrace, feeling his breath brushing over my shoulder. I close my eyes, meaning to nod, but feeling too pleasantly absent to do so. Yeastel seems to get my meaning, regardless, because he leans in closer. His words are spoken in a low whisper, each syllable melting into my thoughts when he asks,
"Can we begin?"
Almost before the question drops, I know my answer. Yes. I hear the slick sound of something wet against something hard, like blood sluicing off bone. And I very quickly realize it was the sound of Yeastel's mandibles spreading wide open. For a moment, I catch a glimpse of gleaming white teeth at the periphery of my vision. Then they sink into my shoulder. Like the way my feet had eased into the pod's fluid without any resistance, Yeastel's teeth slide into my flesh smoothly, with no pause or hesitation, so swiftly that I barely feel the initial puncture. Only when they lodge deep in my flesh, I feel a prickle of pain sparking through my nerves. but even then it feels hot and airy. It's not unpleasant at all. My flesh parts easily, as if the pod's fluids have melted away in any resistance, partially liquefying it. Then I can feel the trickle of hot fluids from the bite mark traced down my chest, pattering into the pool around us. It leaves behind a trace of flickering warmth that lingers on my skin. I want to feel more of it, that warmth. My hands wander practically on my own, starting from Ystol's side and travelling upwards. My fingertips touch against Ystol's body, feeling out details I'd seen before but had never thought I'd get to touch. The gentle inward curve of his exoskeleton above his hips, the softer connective portion where his arm meets his shoulder, the partition line near his throat. Just below his throat, his exoskeleton pops open to a window where his inner flesh peeks past. It's shiny in the warm, hot air of the pod, and I touch at the edge of it as gently as possible. It still earns a deep shiver, and Ystol's mandibles snap shut quickly enough that his teeth rake thin lines across my throat. The sensation sends a heady rush of blood through my veins, and I exhale sharply. My voice escapes with that hot lungful of air. It's a soft noise, but a needy one that echoes in the tight confines of the pod. Ystol says nothing, responding with a low purr from the back of his throat. Did need a hydration check. Like an actual hydration check, okay? That was a lot of talking.
That's true. Blake says, "Holy shit, that's a mouth and a half."
It's a good mouth. It's like this root has everything. It has mandibles, it's got biting, it's got fusion. I am being sniped.
That's what you're into. It's very good. FBI hat from Kaka.
I'm a consenting adult. It's fine.
Definite forewarning was given at the beginning and reaffirmed.
Yep. I'm down a viewer. Someone's fled.
Aw.
Coward.
Weak.
Anyway. I got the purr out of you. Okay. It makes his teeth vibrate ever so slightly as he takes small bites into the junction of my throat and shoulder. Everything is starting to meld together. The sounds of the fluid lapping around us, the feel of teeth easing into my arm, the pressure of Ystol's hands dragging down my back and around below my ribcage. His fingers squeeze tighter, pressing against, then into my sides. My body gives easily to his every touch, made pliable and sensitive and eager by the sweet air and the lap of the fluids. It doesn't take much encouragement from him for me to raise myself up on my knees. It lets me lean in closer to him, pressing chest against chest. That tiny window of his inner flesh feels incredibly hot against my skin, enough to earn a low groan. I want to be closer to him, closer than anything else. So close we become one. I want to be bonded to him. And my body responds easily to these desires, slowly succumbing to Ystol's every touch. As if guided by magnetism, he finds the spots where my body is most prepared to take him. Teeth glide into my throat with the ease of a knife through water, his hands dragging hot lines of sensation across my skin and making a heavy sensation settle in my gut. He shifts beneath me, then pulls me closer until there's practically no boundary between us. My hands grip tight around Ystol's shoulder, pulling him closer. I immediately feel like our bodies would have become one. Like a ribcage without a spine, my body would collapse in on itself without Ystol's form to hold me together. His exoskeleton is hot and slick to touch. The pod's fluids have soaked through his hair, and the strands practically welcome the tangle of my fingers through them, just like my body continues to welcome each and every breach. Faintly, I hear Ystol murmuring my name. His eyes are closed, his movements gentle as he nuzzles against my ribcage. His teeth gently ease apart my skin, and I shiver as his teeth scrape across bone. I can't feel my legs anymore, like they're not there anymore, replaced by a warm sludge. That hot, heavy feeling in my gut keeps expanding, spiking hardest when I move to pull him closer to me. Through the haze of light and sparks that are starting to colour my vision, I feel my fingertips starting to melt, smearing against Yeastel's shoulders. It's good because I can sink even deeper into Yeastel's lap this way, feeling him sink deeper, deeper, deeper into my most innermost recesses. My heart's almost beating out of my chest, and I gasp when Yeastel murmurs my name right against it.
Well.
I say his name back. Yeastel. But I'm not sure if my voice can leave my throat anymore. It's starting to become a bit too much for me. The heats continue to rise, but not in an unpleasant fashion. It's not like the sweltering heat of the summer or the stifle of a hot blanket. This is the heat of a warm embrace that one sinks into endlessly without escape. When I close my eyes, I can feel every little movement against me. The drag of Yeastel's hand at my back, and the way it presses his arm against my spine. The way each hot breath flits past my bones and through my ribcage. The bob of his throat when he swallows, and the faint vibrations whenever he murmurs my name. That hot trickle of the pod's fluid is everywhere now, covering me like a silk cobweb. I've never felt more comfortable. I know for sure that I made the correct choice in bonding with Yeastel. How else could I ever feel so at peace? When I close my eyes, I can hear a single heartbeat pulsing between us. Yeastel is still calling my name, and I smile.
Well.
I'm very glad it's the last thing I hear as my thoughts grow fuzzy and dark. It's a full day before I awaken. I'm aware of it immediately. There's no transition, no period where I'm hazily emerging from sleep. Just the overwhelming darkness of sleep, followed by instantaneous clarity. Because Yeastel was awake first, and as soon as I'm awake, we share everything we know. We are one and the same, so I immediately understand that the bonding process was a success, and that he'd awakened first but had been reluctant to awaken me because he was sure I was exhausted, and he also immediately understood that I was grateful for his consideration. Even bonded with me, he is kind and considerate, and I'm immensely glad for it. It takes me no time. That's such a good look. That's so pretty. Oh my god. It takes me no time at all to adjust to being bonded. Yeastel had been worried the change would be too drastic. Perhaps I simply adapt quickly. I do find it strange at first, occupying a form so different from mine. Our evolved body is closer to Yeastel's old form than mine, and at first I'm confused by the willowy fingers and delicate limbs. Though so unlike my own robust limbs, hardy from long days spent running. But at the same time, it's nice getting to know all these intimate details of Yeastel's body for the first time. Nobody will ever know him better than I do, and nobody will ever know me better than he does either, now that we're bonded. He also immediately understands what my body had been like, and commiserates with my difficulties. Then he helps me adjust until I'm comfortable once more. It's a shock to people who knew me before, of course. Our relationships do change drastically, in a way that can't be reversed. As the Overlook, I can't maintain the same position I did before, delivering salt. But it's not a bad change either, just different. I can still speak to them, ask how they're doing, inquire about their daily lives. I still cherish each and every one of them, the same as before. Perhaps even more, now that we want to protect the city together. As the Overlook, we think so dearly of the city, and do everything we can to nourish it. The city responds in kind by flourishing more than ever. What makes us happiest is neither the bustling city, nor the peaceful streets, nor the friendliness of other people, however. We adore those things, of course, we're deeply grateful for them, but what puts us most at peace is the knowledge that we have each other. Yeastel is me, and I am him. We are always aware of each other, together but separate, at complete peace with each other. And each time we stand on the rooftop of the office and look out over the city, We remember the night of the eclipse, the night that brought us together. That eclipse was only the first of many to come, but it will always be the one most meaningful to us. We did it!
Yay! Wow. Got his little exoskeleton blip opened up into a heart. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's so good. I love it. I kind of am already thinking about a fanfic of this. It's
amazing.
It is so many of the things that I want to write about, like not just in like a kink sense, but also, oh man, Tara, sorry.
I murdered Eat multiple times. Don't worry.
I was extremely dead. I will probably like hack together a highlight reel because it was so much fun. And I mean, I hope I did well for the actual like narration for the naughty bits.
Hell yeah. That was really, really good. Yes.
That was fun. Like that was, you know, it was a really interesting voicing challenge as well. Thank you, Kako, and Miru, right, is the writer. Yeah.
Miru, yeah.
Bad memory for names, sorry. That's I love this game. It's so good. Holy crap. I'm gonna replay that with the safe work settings off because dang. And yeah, like I want to do more like VN voice acting streams, definitely. My dream, Tara's here, so I can say that my dream is to do Heaven Will Be Mine with Tara as Lunaterra, but we got to get her a better mic for that first.
Oh, I look forward to it eventually. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also I'd need to find a Saturn. Because
I have a Saturn.
Do you?
Oh fuck yeah! I have Panzer Dragoon Saga on that bitch.
That Saturn.
Wait, what's that?
No, there's a character in Heaven Will Be Mine called Saturn.
Oh, whoops.
all the characters are named after planets. We need a better mic, a better connection, I think. Maybe, but like. I want to hear your dulcet tones. Mostly I want to do that to Pluto Lunaterra scene where they rip each other to shreds and do some proper howling. Anyway, thank you everyone for the company. Where's the donut button for Tara? I've got to make Tara a VTuber avatar first.
No, me first. Nah. Fight you for custody. No. And even Robin and a giant robot. Well, sign me up. Thank you. I mean, I know I normally play the odd Robin, but I have played the even Robins too.
God, I'm trying to imagine the chaos that would come from you doing Saturn to Tara being Lunaterra. And I can't imagine that. But
oh no.
I don't think Saturn is much of an Ara character.
No, true.
More kind of an imp. But I'm sure you do a good line in imps too.
It's entirely possible.
Anyway, I'm sure there are many other games to play and do this with before then. But yeah, it is now 3:30 in the morning, and I've been talking for 3.5 hours, and I should sleep. Oh yeah, I have enough points saved up to do that again. Good times.
Wait for me to update textures. That's
Okay,
all I'm gonna say.
Good. So tomorrow I'm streaming Final Fantasy 12, which is like Final Fantasy 14, except I don't have any friends.
Oh.
But it is like chill chatting streams because I'm just doing side quests now. And then quick plug for Sunday, my friend Lexi's birthday party. She is going to play allegedly 8 Sonic games in one sitting, starting at about 9 a.m. Pacific and going until she dies. Yeah, show up to that if you can. Atelier Escalier on Twitch. I don't have the shout out bot, but I will be shouting about it on Twitter and stuff. And yeah, thank you again, Kai. Everybody follow Kai. Let's do the...
Wow.
I mean, everybody here, I think, already is following Kai, but lovely Chill Dragon Cave, lovely Chill Dragon streams.
What? Thank
And
you.
thanks again, Kako, for being here and like being lovely and making a lovely game. And good night.
Good night, everybody.